Chapter 329. Bailey Yun, who had just walked out of the door, naturally heard the noise inside. He patted the shoulder of the waiter standing next to him and winked at him. The waiter nodded, walked into the room and bowed politely to Suzuki Sakura. "Miss, this tea set is an antique from the Ming Dynasty. It's worth 5 million. Would you like to pay by card or cash?" Suzuki Chisakura's vision turned dark and she almost fainted from anxiety. Bailey Yun smiled, put his hands in his trouser pockets, and hummed a song as he went downstairs. In the hall he met the owner of the tea house, Xiao Shu. Xiao Shu glanced at the second floor, raised his eyebrows and smiled. "No wonder you suddenly asked me to replace the tea set with a valuable antique. It's a pity that my porcelain was all smashed by someone's anger." Bailey Yun raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Come on, your antiques are worth 4 million at most. Won't you be happy if I let you make a net profit of 1 million? "Okay, buddy. Thank you." Xiao Shu patted him on the shoulder. "When your matter is solved, let's go for a drink together." Bailey Yun smiled. "Okay, it's a deal. Don't stand me up again. I just stood you up to accompany my wife on New Year's Eve. Do you have to remember it until now?" Xiao Shu said. He suddenly looked at the stairs and lowered his voice. "They're coming down. Do you want to hide? What are you afraid of? It's not like I forced her to throw those things." Bai Liyun lazily shrugged his shoulders and leaned back on the sofa. Xiao Shu shook his head. Suzuki Sakura followed the waiter and slowly walked down from the second floor. It could be seen that her face was very ugly. When she saw Bailey Yun sitting on the sofa and chatting with others, her eyes immediately filled with anger, but she couldn't do anything. The waiter led her to Xiao Shu and said politely, "Miss Suzuki, this is the boss of our tea house, Mr. Xiao. Mr. Xiao, Miss Suzuki accidentally broke your favorite Ming Dynasty tea set. She wants to discuss the compensation with you face to face." Xiao Shu extended his hand in invitation. "Miss Suzuki, please sit." Bailey Yun's eyes were filled with a mischievous smile. He coughed and said, "Xiao Shu, since you still have something to do, I won't bother you anymore. Let's meet again another day." Xiao Shu patted his shoulder, the smile in his eyes self-evident. "Alright, take care." Bailey Yun completely ignored Chisakura Suzuki. After bidding farewell to Xiao Shu, he put on his sunglasses and walked out of the tea house. Suzuki Chisakura held back her anger and negotiated with Xiao Shu, saying that her lawyer would ask someone to evaluate the value of the antique, and then she would compensate. Xiao Shu didn't seem to have any intention of making things difficult for her and nodded in agreement. However, there was a saying that a strong dragon couldn't suppress a local snake. It wasn't difficult for people like Xiao Shu to make the antique appraiser give an extra million when evaluating the tea set. Bailey Yun suppressed Suzuki Chisakura and caused her to lose money, so he was in a good mood. He predicted that she wouldn't last long and would surrender to his conditions. After all, he had experienced Mika Kito's methods. He smirked and turned on the music in the car. Suddenly his phone rang. He turned off the music and answered the car phone. "Hello, who is this?" The person on the other end of the phone hesitated for a moment. "Bailey Yun, it's me, Li Duobao." Bailey Yun's eyes narrowed. He coughed and his voice softened. "What's the matter?" Li Duobao grunted and said uncomfortably, "I saw the news. It's about you and Xiao Bao." He tightened his grip on the steering wheel and his expression became cold. "Well, I heard that Suzuki Chisakura withdrew the lawsuit today. Are you okay?" Bailey Yun's brows relaxed slightly and the corners of his lips curled up imperceptibly. "Li Duobao, are you worried about me?" She paused and suddenly shouted anxiously, I just don't want Xiao Bao to be snatched away by that woman. Alright, I know my attitude is wrong because that woman is Xiao Bao's biological mother. Forget it, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm hanging up. Don't hang up yet. Hello, Li Duobao. Beep beep. Bailey Yun stared ahead and his facial muscles twitched uncontrollably. This despicable woman actually dared to hang up on him. He turned the steering wheel with both hands and drove in another direction. Li Duobao was very annoyed and scratched her head hard. What nonsense was she talking about? She had nothing to do with Bailey Yun, so why was she so worried? Those were his family matters. Li Duobao stared at the landline on the table and frowned in frustration. Should she call him to apologize? She shook her head. Forget it. That guy would definitely misunderstand. Yes, that's right. She shouldn't call him. She was flying to New York tomorrow. She'd better hurry up and pack her luggage. Yes, that's it. Li Duobao muttered to herself and turned around decisively. She didn't look at the phone anymore and went back to the bedroom to pack her luggage. As she was too engrossed in packing her luggage, she quickly forgot what she was worried about. Half an hour later, she was already in the kitchen. planning to cook something delicious for herself. The phone in her pocket rang. She wiped her hands and took it out. When she saw the name on the screen, she hesitated for a moment. She asked carefully, "Bailey Yun, what's the matter?" Bailey Yun's cold voice came from the other side. "Come downstairs." I'm downstairs. Come down right now." Okay, she immediately took off her apron, put on her down jacket, locked the door and ran downstairs. In less than 2 minutes, Bailey Yun saw a white figure running towards him. Li Duobao bent over and supported her legs with both hands, panting heavily. "I'm so tired." I ran down. Bailey Yun stared at her in disdain. Then his gaze fell on her feet. She was wearing a pair of furry slippers with rabbit ears. "Isn't there an elevator? Also, why didn't you change your shoes and zip up your clothes?" She scratched her head embarrassedly. "I was afraid that you'd wait for too long." His eyes flickered. He suddenly walked forward and held her shoulders with both hands to help her stand up straight. Then he grabbed the hem of her down jacket. She widened her eyes in shock. "What are you doing?" "Idiot, I'm going to help you zip it up." Bailey Yun lowered his head and slowly pulled up the zipper of her jacket. Li Duobao blushed in embarrassment and took 2 steps back. "Why are you looking for me? Which floor are you staying on? Let's talk upstairs." Bailey Yun turned and walked towards the building. She was stunned for a moment and ran after him. "I'm on the 5th floor." The room wasn't big, but it was very clean and decorated cozily. There were 3 or 4 cartoon character pillows on the sofa in the living room. There was a thin blanket on the back of the chair. Seeing that he was staring at the blanket, she quickly put it away and hid it behind her back. She smiled awkwardly. "I like to lie on the sofa and watch TV. Have a seat first. I'll be back soon." She ran back to the bedroom with the blanket and quickly rushed to the kitchen to make a pot of hot tea for him. The aroma of rice wafted from the rice cooker. Bailey Yun looked up at the kitchen. "You're cooking?" "Yeah, I haven't cooked yet. Do you want to stay for dinner?" "All right," he answered quickly. She hesitated for a moment and said, "Why are you looking for me?" Bailey Yun leaned back and leaned against the sofa comfortably. He held his chin with one hand and looked at her with a burning gaze. "Let me ask you, were you worried about me when you called me just now?" Her cheeks were slightly hot. "I wasn't worried about you. I was worried about Xiao Bao," he pressed on. "You were asking about me." She lowered her head and scratched the sofa with her fingers. She said stubbornly, "That was a slip of the tongue. I wanted to ask if you guys were okay." His lips moved. He wanted to say something, but she stood up and said angrily, "I'm not going to talk nonsense with you anymore. I'm going to cook." Bailey Yun watched as she busied herself in the kitchen. His irritable mood gradually calmed down. He thought that it was time to sort out his feelings for Li Duobao. Was it a spur-of-the-moment interest in her? Was it because he found her fresh and interesting, or did he really like her? Li Duobao still remembered the embarrassing incident when she treated him to hot pot last time. This time, to take care of his taste, some dishes didn't have chili, while some dishes only had a little chili. Bailey Yun helped her bring the fragrant dishes to the table. The dishes that looked, smelled, and tasted good made his appetite wet. He ate with relish and praised, "I didn't expect you to know how to cook when you look so silly." She puffed up her cheeks. Her big eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. "Are you praising me? When I was young, my father passed away early. My mother was very busy with work. When I came home from school, I would cook and wait for my mother to come back so that we could eat together." Bailey Yun looked at her with a complicated expression. She suddenly burst out laughing. "You don't know. When I first learned how to cook, I was only 7 years old. I was too short. Here I was this tall." She gestured with her hand. "When I was cooking, I couldn't reach the pot, so I moved a small stool in front of the gas stove and stood on it to cook. In the end, one time I was too close to the gas stove and the flames almost set my clothes on fire. Fortunately, I smelled the stench." Bailey Yun's heart felt stuffy and a little uncomfortable. He stared at her. "You were almost injured. How can you still laugh?" She touched her nose embarrassedly. "It was very dangerous at that time. But now that I think about it, I feel that it's very funny." Bailey Yun suddenly had an impulse to hug this silly girl in his arms. She grew up in a single-parent family and had a perverted stepfather. However, she had developed a cheerful personality. She did not complain about misfortune and was positive and optimistic about life. She was a very silly but very cute girl. His gaze made Li Duobao a little uncomfortable. She touched her cheek and pouted. "Why are you staring at my face? Is there something dirty on it?" He suddenly grinned. "Come here. I'll help you wipe it." "Okay." She obediently moved her face closer to his. He leaned over and gently planted a kiss on her rosy cheeks. Her eyes suddenly widened. He said, "Li Duobao, let's date. This time I'm serious." At Songshu 566. Chapter 330. Li Duobao's eyes were filled with panic. She suddenly screamed and pushed him away. She fled into the bedroom in a panic, even dropping one of her furry slippers. No matter how much Bai Liyun knocked on the door, she refused to come out and refused to talk to him. In the end, he had no choice but to put on his coat and leave. Before leaving, he knocked on her door again. "Li Duobao, I'm serious. I think I like you. Think about what I said." Bai Liyun nodded and said, "Li Duobao, I'm serious. I think I like you." There was still no response from the room. Bai Liyun was a little disappointed and annoyed. He walked out of the building dejectedly. An hour later, he was still sitting in the Ferrari looking at the floor where she lived from afar. He pounded the steering wheel in annoyance. How could he have been so reckless? He must have scared her now. When he thought of her panicked eyes as if he was a pervert, he couldn't help but feel annoyed. He called her number but no one answered. Maybe he should give her time to calm down and think about it. Bai Liyun sighed and finally started the car. Suzuki Chisakura returned to Japan that day. However, she didn't give up on Xiaobao. She had people secretly follow Bai Liyun and monitor the situation at Bailey's house. When she rushed back to the Matsuda group, she realized that the situation was so serious that she couldn't solve it. Even the subordinates who used to support her had now transferred to Matsuda Taihei's camp. When she communicated with the 5 elders, she found out that Mika Kito had intervened in the matter. He was using the power of Yamaguchi-gumi to put pressure on the 5 elders. Suzuki Chisakura immediately contacted Mika Kito and wanted to negotiate with him, but Mika Kito refused to talk to her. He asked Suzaku to pass on a message to her. He said, "If you don't give up Xiaobao's custody, she can never be the leader of the Matsuda group." Suzuki Chisakura was so angry that she threw the phone on the floor. She crazily pushed everything on her desk to the floor. After a while, she slumped against the back of the chair and took out a very small photo from the drawer. In the photo was a cute baby. Her slender fingers caressed the photo as tears slowly slid down her face. After a long time, she put the photos back into the drawer. There were still 2 days left. She hoped that things would turn around. However, fate did not favor her. The subordinates who were monitoring Bai Liyun and the Bailey family reported that they did not find any evidence that could be used against them. Chien Sakura even thought of kidnapping the Bailey's family to threaten them, but they seemed to be prepared. They rarely went out in the past 2 days, and even if they did, there were at least 2 bodyguards following them. It was almost impossible to kidnap them. On the 3rd day, it was time for the Matsuda group to elect a new leader. Matsuda Corporation headquarters, inside a spacious and luxurious conference room. Wearing a kimono, Suzuki Chisakura sat at the head of the table with an expressionless face. Matsuda Taihei arrived late. He was wearing a black suit, and there was a gentle smile on his handsome face. It was obvious that he had a card up his sleeve. He was followed by the 5 elders, who looked like they were at his beck and call. "Auntie, I'm late. Please don't mind." Matsuda Taihei greeted her politely, but in Suzuki Chisakura's eyes, it was a provocation. Her beautiful eyes suddenly narrowed and then she smiled. "Taihei, you're a nosy person. It's understandable that you're late." The 2 of them had already begun to exchange words. The elder coughed and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, today's meeting is to discuss the re-election." The old man rambled on, saying that Suzuki Chisakura was a woman and did not have the ability to lead the Matsuda group. The nephew of the former leader, Matsuda Taihei, was young and promising, and was the best candidate for the position. The more Suzuki Chisakura listened, the angrier she became. She felt terrible to see someone who used to support her become a supporter of her opponent. Her thirst for power swelled in her heart, and she felt like she was about to explode. She looked at the phone on the table and finally made up her mind. She coughed and interrupted the elder's long speech. "I'll take a 2-minute break. I have something to do." She did not care about the ugly expressions on everyone's faces. She picked up her phone and walked out of the conference room calmly. In the office, Suzuki Chisakura dialed Bai Liyun's cell phone. "Bai Liyun, I agree to your conditions." Bai Liyun's magnetic voice came through. "I'll say it again. My conditions are, 1. You give up Xiaobao's custody. 2. You're not allowed to visit Xiaobao without my consent." She gritted her teeth and said resolutely, "I agree to all of them." "Very well. Tell me the fax number and I'll fax you the agreement." Bai Liyun had expected her to agree, so he had already asked the lawyer to draft the agreement. Suzuki Chien Sakura gave him the fax number, and within a minute the agreement was faxed over. Bai Liyun said, "I've already signed the agreement. You just need to sign it, stamp it with your personal seal and fax it to me. That's all." Suzuki Chisakura hurriedly read the agreement. It was very clear that she was willing to give up custody without any coercion. She had to get Bai Liyun's consent before she could visit Xiaobao. The agreement also stated that the agreement was effective from the day it was faxed. The terms were very strict and there were no loopholes. She picked up the pen and was about to sign it when she hesitated. Suddenly, her subordinate knocked on the door. "Madam, Mr. Matsuda Taihei asked me to rush you." They could not wait for her to step down. She made up her mind and no longer hesitated. She signed her name, stamped her seal and faxed the agreement to Bai Liyun. When she came out of the office, her aura changed. She was cold and arrogant. She was waiting to see the exciting scene when Matsuda Taihei fell from the peak of hope. It was also at that moment that Suzuki Chisakura witnessed Baitangshin's ability to control the world with a flip of his hand. Just a minute before she walked into the meeting room, the 5 elders received a text message at the same time. It was only a few words. "Change the direction of the wind." So when Suzuki Chisakura walked into the meeting room again, the atmosphere had changed. She glanced at everyone and said calmly, "The meeting continues. Great Elder, where were you?" The Great Elder smiled gently. "We were talking about a new election which was requested by Mr. Matsuda Taihei. However, after discussing it with the other 4 elders and the brothers in the gang, we feel that there is no need for a new election." Matsuda Taihei still didn't know that he was a sacrifice in the battle between Suzuki Chisakura and the Bailey family. He was shocked and locked his eyes on the Great Elder. "Great Elder, did you say something wrong?" The Great Elder looked confused. "Did I say something wrong?" "No, I have always said that there is no need for a new election. Don't you think so, other 4 elders?" The other 4 elders agreed. "That's right. That's what you said." "Nephew Taihei, did you hear wrongly?" Matsuda Taihei's expression changed. "What's wrong with all of you? Didn't you say that you would support me?" The second elder shook his head. "TSK. Nephew Taihei, why do you say that? Madam is doing well as the gang leader. Why would we support you?" A sneer appeared in Suzuki Chisakura's eyes as she looked at them with an expressionless face. Matsuda Taihei was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He pointed at the noses of the 5 elders and nodded angrily. "Good, very good. The 5 of you actually joined forces to deceive me. Taihei, have you lost your mind? When did we ever deceive you?" The third elder stroked his beard with an innocent face. "Suzuki Chisakura, this is all part of your scheme, isn't it?" Matsuda Taihei pounced on Suzuki Chisakura in anger. The bodyguard behind her immediately rushed forward and stopped him. Suzuki Chisakura raised her hand and stopped the bodyguard from escorting Matsuda Taihei out. "Taihei, why are you so agitated? I didn't do anything. Every injustice has its perpetrator. This is the Yamaguchi-gumi's doing. If you have the ability, go and make trouble with Mikakito." Matsuda Taihei's eyes narrowed as hatred flashed in his eyes. "Mikakito? Yes. We've all been tricked by him." Suzuki Chisakura sighed. "You know how powerful the Yamaguchi-gumi is. They have always been eyeing the Matsuda group's territory. He intends to use this opportunity to disintegrate the Matsuda group. Don't fall into his trap." Then the 5 of them, Matsuda Taihei wasn't a fool. He wouldn't be easily fooled by Suzuki Chisakura's words. He pointed at the 5 elders. "What's going on with them?" Suzuki Chisakura stared at the first elder with a smile. "First elder, please explain to Taihei." The first elder's forehead was covered in sweat. He knew that she was using this opportunity to put him in his place. An idea flashed in his mind and he followed Suzuki Chisakura's words. "Taihei, madam is right. Mikakito has long wanted to disintegrate the Matsuda group. This time, he deliberately bribed the few of us to support you in seizing the gang leader's position, so as to provoke a dispute between you and madam. Fortunately, the 5 of us saw through his scheme. At the critical moment, we didn't follow the path he set." The first elder walked to Matsuda Taihei's side and waved his hand, signaling the bodyguards to let him go. He patted Matsuda Taihei's shoulder and said apologetically, "I'm sorry that we lied to you. However, we only pretended to fool Mikakito. Please forgive us." The second elder said, "Nephew Taihei, no matter what misunderstanding you have with us, it's a gang matter. Our common enemy is Mikakito." Suzuki Chisakura looked at Matsuda Taihei with a sincere gaze. "Taihei, you're a sensible person. Let's pretend that nothing happened today. Let's think of a way to deal with Mikakito together." Their words had dispelled all of Matsuda Taihei's doubts. They had also transferred all of his resentment to Mika Kito. As a result, Mika Kito was buried in a disaster. Awesome novel Songshu 566. Chapter 331. Mika Kito had played a crucial role in the successful resolution of Xiao Bao's matter. In order to thank him, old Madame Han brought the whole family to treat him to a meal at Century Splendid. As usual, Beitang Xin didn't have any expression on his face. Only when he was facing a few children would he reveal his warmth. Fortunately, the old madam also understood his personality, so she deliberately brought up some topics that everyone could join in the conversation. Thus, the atmosphere at the dinner was still harmonious. After the meal, everyone drank tea and chatted for a while before leaving. Bailey Yun had been absent-minded the whole time. From time to time he would take out his phone and glance at it. When he came out of the hotel, Bailey Han patted him on the shoulder and said in a concerned tone, "What's the matter? I see that you've been absent-minded tonight." Bailey Yun shook his head. "It's nothing. If you have something to say, say it. Don't keep it to yourself." Bailey Yun's eyes moved. He was a little surprised. Bailey Han would never say such words in the past. Although they were brothers, they rarely interacted with each other. Looking at Bailey Han's serious expression, he didn't seem to be joking. He raised his eyebrows. "Okay, I got it." Bailey Han nodded. Xia Dong came out of the hotel with the children. Xiao Bao held Xiao Guai's hand and didn't look at Bailey Yun. Bailey Yun coughed and said, "Xiao Bao, are you taking my car or your father's car?" Xiao Bao didn't know how to face Bailey Yun. He didn't want to call him daddy, but he couldn't call him second uncle. When he had to talk to him, Xiao Bao would directly address him as you. Although Bailey Yun didn't feel good about it, he couldn't do anything about it. He understood that the relationship between father and son needed time to develop. Xiao Bao still refused to look at him and said calmly, "I'll go with Xiao Guai and Xiao Yi." That meant that she was going to take Bailey Han's car. Bailey Han gave Bailey Yun a look, indicating for him not to be anxious and to take it slow. Bailey Yun smiled bitterly as he watched the family of 6 get into the car. After returning home, the old madam summoned Bailey Yun to her study and had a long talk with him. The old madam said kindly, "Yun, you are no longer alone. Do you have any plans for your life?" Bailey Yun had been thinking about this question for a long time. He frowned and said, "Grandma, my business is in America now. In 2 days I will return to America. As for Xiao Bao, let him stay in China. I'll have to trouble big brother and sister-in-law to take care of him for a period of time. My company will enter the China market in a year at the latest. When that time comes, I will be stationed in China for a long time, and it will be convenient for me to take care of Xiao Bao." The old madam thought for a moment and said, "That's a good idea. However, you should discuss it with Xiao Bao first. There are many problems between you and your father, and you need to communicate well." Bailey Yun nodded. "I understand, Grandma." The old madam looked at the respectful grandson in front of her. He was no longer the hedonistic son of a rich family. She felt comforted and her tone became gentler. "Yun, have you considered your personal problems?" Suddenly seeing the eagerness in her eyes, Bailey Yun was a little stunned. He had never thought that the old madam, who had always been strict and cold to him, would look at him with such eyes. He pursed his lips and felt a little uncomfortable. "I actually have a girl that I like," the old madam hurriedly said. "What's her character like?" Bailey Yun coughed and his ears turned slightly red. "She's very innocent and not scheming. She's also a little silly." It was the old madam's first time seeing his embarrassed expression. She couldn't help but laugh. "It's good that she has a good character. What does she do?" "Stewardess." Bailey Yun paused and deliberately softened his tone. "Her family background is average. She comes from a single-parent family." The old madam's smile did not fade. She joked, "Why? Are you worried that I'll say something about your family background not matching, so I'll oppose you too? If it was a year ago, I might have really done that. But now I've seen through it. Su Xingqin and Su Yunqian, which one of them isn't the daughter of a rich family? They're full of evil tricks. If I really married them, there would be no peace in the family. As long as that girl has a good character, a good heart, and won't mistreat Xiao Bao, I have no objections." A smile appeared in Bailey Yun's eyes and his lips curved. "She likes Xiao Bao a lot. Xiao Bao likes her too." His marriage was a big worry for the old madam. At this moment, hearing him say this, she immediately felt relieved. She smiled and said, that's good. Set a time with that girl. I'll meet her." Bailey Yun coughed and looked embarrassed. "Grandma, it's just that I like her. I don't know if she likes me." The old madam was angry and amused. She pointed at his nose and said, "Look at you. Aren't you very popular with girls? Since she's so good, hurry up and chase her here. Bailey Yun felt wronged. I want to, but she's not answering my calls or replying to my messages. The old madam was anxious. She stomped the floor with her walking stick. Go to her house and find her. Bailey Yun laughed. His long and narrow foxy eyes slightly raised. Grandma, why are you more anxious than me? The old madam slapped him on the head in annoyance. You're already so old, but you can't even get a girl. How can I not be anxious? Bailey Yun's eyebrows were full of smiles. Grandma, you haven't even seen her and you're already sure that she's suitable for me? The old madam looked into his eyes seriously. Yun, you've played for so many years and have dated so many girls. You know who's suitable for you. Grandma just believes in your taste. The ice in Bailey Yun's heart gradually melted. He slowly curled his lips. Grandma, thank you. The old madam patted his shoulder and said gently, Yun, we neglected you in the past. I hope that we can make it up to you in the future. I'm old and I've seen many things. Right now, I only know one reason, and that is, family is the most important. No matter where you go, you have to remember that at home, there's still someone thinking about you. Bailey Yun was slightly startled and then chuckled. Grandma, I'll remember. The old madam smiled. Go get that girl as soon as possible. All right. Bailey Yun came out of the study and stood in the empty corridor for a long time. On the way back to his room, he passed by Xiao Bao's room. He hesitated for a moment, raised his hand and knocked on the door. Xiao Bao, it's me. Can I come in? Xiao Bao's voice was muffled. Come in. What are you doing? Bailey Yun walked into the room and saw Xiao Bao sitting in front of the desk. His back was straight and he was holding a pen in his right hand, writing something quickly. Xiao Bao did not even turn his head. I'm doing my winter homework. School will start in a few days. Bailey Yun stood behind him. After you're done, I'll check for you, okay? He tried his best to play the role of a father. No need. Xiao Bao rejected him immediately. A certain someone was a little hurt. His fingers scratched the back of the chair and he cried silently in his heart. Xiao Bao seemed to realize that he had rejected him too quickly. He puffed up his cheeks and added, My answers are 100% correct, so there's no need to waste time checking. A certain someone was energized as if he had been injected with chicken blood. Then do you want to listen to a bedtime story? Xiao Bao pursed his lips. No need. I'm not in the mood today. Oh. A certain someone was crestfallen again, and he sighed from time to time, like a resentful wife who had been abandoned. Xiao Bao's mouth twitched and the handwriting on the exercise book became messy. He suddenly turned around and looked at the certain someone behind him, who was walking around resentfully. Are you bored? Bailey Yun's resentful eyes immediately drifted over, and he looked like a resentful wife. You don't seem to need me at all. I'm really an incompetent father. As he spoke, he squatted down and hugged his knees with both hands. He looked up and stared at Xiao Bao with pitiful eyes. Xiao Bao was about to explode. He slammed his pen on the table and shouted at the certain someone who was pretending to be pitiful. Hey, you're an adult. Don't you think your current behavior is very shameful? Bailey Yun shook his head fiercely. His gaze was pitiful and his tone was desolate. I think it's more shameful to be ignored by my own son. Xiao Bao was about to go crazy. Why did he have such a shameless father? If you have nothing else to do, get out. Bailey Yun's tone was bleak. Son, don't worry about me. Please continue to ignore my existence. When you're done with your homework, just give me 10 minutes. We'll have a good talk. I can't do my homework with you here, okay? Xiao Bao threw caution to the wind. He moved a small stool over and sat in front of him. Tell me, what do you want to talk to me about? Bailey Yun patted his head. His foxy eyes narrowed into slits. Call me daddy and I'll tell you. Xiao Bao silently turned his head and stood up. He didn't even want the small stool. He sat back down on the chair in front of the desk, picked up his pen and continued to do his homework. Bailey Yun was really injured. He hid in a corner and licked his fur to heal his injuries. After a while, he pretended to be lighthearted and said, Son, actually, I really do have something to talk to you about. Xiao Bao's body didn't move. He continued, In a few days I'll continue to work in America. In a year at the latest, after the company enters the China market, I'll be stationed in China. If you want, you can come with me to America. If you want to stay in China, your parents will take care of you. I'll also come back to visit you often. The little guy still didn't make a sound. Bailey Yun lowered his eyes and said in a deep voice, Xiao Bao, I was born into an incomplete family. When I was very young, I told myself that if I had a child in the future, I must treat him well and love him. Although I still don't know how to be a good father, I'll work hard. Are you willing to believe me? He raised his head and looked at Xiao Bao. His small figure looked a little lonely under the light. He didn't respond, nor did he make any movements. Bailey Yun smiled bitterly and stood up. I won't disturb you from doing your homework. Finish your homework and rest early. As the door closed with a bang, the tears in Xiao Bao's eyes fell. Come and see. xianxia 866. Chapter 332. 2 days later, the kindergarten started school. Xiao Guai was very excited because she could go back to school and play with her friends. Bailey Yun took Xiao Bao while Xia Dong took Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai to school. Bailey Yun dragged Xiao Bao into his car and tied him to the front passenger seat, forcing him to listen to his nagging. Son, don't fight with your classmates in school. Of course, if someone beats you up, you can beat them back. Xiao Bao rolled his eyes. Are you telling me not to fight with others, or am I allowed to fight with others? Bailey Yun ruffled his hair. Don't take the initiative to hit others. If they hit you, don't hesitate to hit them back. Do you understand? Oh, Xiao Bao said. He looked up and asked curiously, what if I beat them to death? Bailey Yun's mouth twitched. Son, are you deliberately making things difficult for me? Xiao Bao snorted. It's good that you know. I'm not a 3-year-old kid who knows how to deal with conflicts between classmates. I don't need you to teach me. Okay, I know you're good. Bailey Yun's eyes suddenly lit up and he said, one more thing. No puppy love. Xiao Bao looked at him with disdain. Do you think I'm like you? Leave mercy everywhere. He enunciated the last 4 words with great emphasis. Bailey Yun coughed awkwardly. So, I'm a bad example. Don't learn from me. In school you have to protect your sister and don't let her get bullied. Do you understand? Xiao Bao said impatiently, I know, naggy old man. Hey, your daddy, I'm still in my prime. How am I old? You dare to complain that I'm naggy now? When I'm 70 or 80 years old and really become an old man, are you going to kick me out of the house? Bailey Yun felt that it was necessary to teach him a lesson about respecting his elders. Xiao Bao glared at him with his big beautiful eyes and said fiercely, don't worry. Even if you're old and your teeth fall out, I'll take care of you. I'm your son after all. Although his attitude wasn't good, his words still made Bailey Yun feel good. Thus, he very shamelessly forgot his original purpose. He smiled and patted Xiao Bao's head, praising, Son, you said it very well. After reporting their arrival, Bailey Yun squatted in front of Zhao's face. Xiao Bao couldn't stand it and frowned. He grabbed Xiao Guai's little hand and said, the teacher has a meeting. Meeting. We'll be going. With that, the 2 little guys ran away. Bailey Yun's head drooped and he looked like he had been dealt a blow. Xia Dong couldn't help but laugh. Ayun, you're starting to look like a father now. Bailey Yun was instantly revived. He raised his eyebrows and said, I can now understand how difficult it is for you. Xia Dong laughed. I'm serious. When it's cold, I want to remind him to put on more clothes. When he's hungry, I want to get him something to eat. When I don't see him for a while, I'm worried that something might have happened to him. He laughed at himself. I only know now that it's not easy being a parent. Xia Dong stopped laughing and walked to his side. She said seriously, Ayun, don't worry and go to America. Your brother and I will take good care of Xiao Bao. Bailey Yun's lips curved. Xia, thank you. Thank you for taking good care of Xiao Bao all these years. Xia Dong smiled. You're treating me like an outsider. Xiao Bao is also my son. He looked at her in a daze. He didn't know when it started, but when he saw her being intimate with Bailey Han, he didn't feel any heartache. He smiled and chuckled. Xia, seeing that you're happy, I can finally let go. Xia Dong pursed her lips and smiled. Fox, you'll find your happiness too. In the complicated emotional entanglements, the one who left didn't necessarily have to be alone for the rest of his life. There was still the most suitable person waiting for him. For example, Li Duobao. This woman that Bailey Yun missed so much was still unheard of. Before going abroad, he decided to go to her house again and have a good talk with her. Even if she rejected him, he would accept it. When he arrived at her door, he knocked for a long time but no one answered. The neighbor opposite Li Duobao's house suddenly opened the door and poked her head out. She stared at Bailey Yun in confusion. You're looking for Duobao? She flew abroad yesterday. Bailey Yun asked politely, do you know which country she flew to? The sister-in-law frowned and thought for a while. It's either England or America. Duobao mainly flies these 2 routes. When will she be back? Tomorrow. Bailey Yun thanked her. The sister-in-law glanced at him and was about to close the door when she suddenly thought of something. She quickly poked her head out and looked at him carefully. Then she shook her head and said seriously, Sir, Duobao is a good girl. If you're just playing around, don't look for her again. Bailey Yun's expression changed. He knew that the sister-in-law had recognized him. He pursed his lips and said in a deep voice, "Sister-in-law, I'm sincere about Duobao." After saying that, he left the stunned sister-in-law behind and turned to leave. In the end, Bailey Yun did not see Li Duobao. His plane was about to take off. His family sent him off at the airport. After saying goodbye reluctantly, Bailey Yun squatted in front of Xiao Bao and hugged her tightly. He pressed Xiao Bao's head against his chest and said in a low voice, "Xiao Bao, I'm leaving. I'll come back to see you every month. I'll work hard and try to develop my career in the country as soon as possible. Listen to your parents. Don't make me worry." Xiao Bao lay on his chest and listened to his heartbeat. Finally, she slowly reached out her hand and placed it on his back. She softly grunted. Bailey Yun was surprised and hugged her tightly. Finally, she kissed him on the forehead and said, "Son, wait for me to come back." Bailey Yun let go of Xiao Bao and dragged his suitcase. He turned around and did not look at her again. He was afraid that if he looked at her again, he would not have the courage to walk out of there. Seeing that his back was about to disappear at the security checkpoint, Xiao Bao suddenly shouted, "Daddy, I'll wait for you to come back." Bailey Yun's body suddenly froze. He turned around in disbelief and saw Xiao Bao's teary eyes. He threw down his things and ran towards Xiao Bao. He rushed to him at an extremely fast speed and picked him up from the ground. He hugged him tightly in his arms and his heart was beating wildly. "Son, what did you just say?" Xiao Bao wrapped her arms around his neck and smiled as tears streamed down her face. "Daddy, I'll wait for you to come back." "Good son, Daddy loves you." Bailey Yun kissed him hard on the cheek as tears rolled down his cheeks. "Shame, you're already an adult and you're still crying. Don't let your great-grandmother and the others see this." Xiao Bao smiled through her tears. She took out a handkerchief from her pocket and wiped his tears. Bailey Yun hugged him and smiled foolishly. She pressed her forehead against his little one. "Son, I'm so happy." Xiao Bao bared her teeth and made a face. Old Madam and the others had red eyes and used handkerchiefs to wipe the corners of their eyes. After a short reunion, Bai Liyun still boarded the plane to the United States. However, this time he no longer had any regrets in his heart. He was filled with a sense of responsibility. He was a father. He had the responsibility to take care of his son. He had to create better conditions for his son. With such surging emotions, he once again stepped onto America's soil. In the blink of an eye, it was March. The scenery was bright and beautiful, and spring was in full bloom. Imperial Kindergarten paid more attention to quality education. Every year at the end of March, it would organize a spring outing for the older children to cultivate their ability to live independently and encourage them to get close to and love nature. There were a total of 20 children in this year's kindergarten class. This year's spring outing was stricter than previous years. The school's teachers would take the children to a relatively remote mountain village and let them live together for 2 days and 1 night. Of course, the school would ensure the children's safety. After all, these children were the treasures of rich families. If any of them were to have an accident, the school would be in serious trouble. The night before the spring outing, Xia Dong prepared a suitcase and a backpack for each of the 3 children at home. The suitcase contained the children's clothes, and the backpack was filled with food and water. There were also some commonly used medicines such as cold medicine, burn medicine, and so on. Xia Dong was afraid that she would forget something, so she dragged Bailey Han out of the study and read out the things she had prepared to him. "Honey, look. What's missing?" Bailey Han touched his chin. "If you have to say what's missing, it's the 2 of us." Xia Dong said angrily, "I'm talking to you about something serious. Don't joke around." He stroked her hair and said softly, "Honey, the purpose of the kindergarten spring outing is to cultivate the children's ability to live independently. If you've prepared everything for them, what else do you need them to do?" Xia Dong bit her lip. "I know, but I'm just worried." Bailey Han took her into his arms and stroked her back. He said softly, "When I was 4 or 5 years old, I was already learning taekwondo and judo from my teacher. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi are boys. In the future they will inherit the Bailey family. They can't be weak. We have to cultivate their ability to be independent from a young age." Xia Dong lay in his arms for a long time. Finally she nodded. "Okay, I'll listen to you." He smiled and said, "There's one more thing, honey. I've already contacted the coach. Starting in April, the coach will teach the 3 children martial arts. Xiao Guai is a girl. Although she doesn't have to be as strict as her brothers, she still has to learn basic self-defense skills. The children of the Bailey family had to learn martial arts from a young age. It was a family tradition. Xia Dong knew about it a long time ago. Moreover, Xiaobao had learned martial arts from Mika Kito when she was in Japan. Therefore, she didn't have any objections and nodded in agreement. Okay, don't worry about the three little guys. The school will take good care of them. Bailey Han bent down and carried her to the bedroom. It's getting late. We should rest. Beauty novel Xingwu 799. Chapter 333. In the end, the 3 school bags that Xia Dong had prepared for the children were left at home. The little guys dragged their small suitcases to the school gate to wait for the school bus. Many parents reluctantly accompanied and escorted them. Xia Dong was also one of them. Xia Dong did not know that while she was worried about the children, Bailey Han had already made arrangements. The school attached great importance to the safety of this activity. Even the location of the spring outing was only known to a few people, including the principal. This was to prevent the location from being leaked and attracting the attention of criminals. After all, these children were from wealthy families. If 1 or 2 of them were kidnapped, the school would be finished. The principal planned to hire bodyguards with excellent martial arts from a professional bodyguard company to protect the children's safety. Bailey Han got wind of this and personally went to the school to talk to the principal, expressing his willingness to sponsor the accompanying bodyguards. He had heard of financial and material sponsorship, but had never heard of manpower sponsorship. Although the principal was surprised, he still accepted Bailey Han's sponsorship because he knew that Bailey's bodyguards were very powerful. Therefore, Bailey Han transferred 10 brothers from the Dragon Gang to disguise as security guards to accompany the school bus and protect the children on the outing. The school bus slowly came and stopped at the school gate. This was a luxurious minibus. Including the driver, there were exactly 20 seats. The teacher had arranged the numbers in advance and let the children get on the bus according to the numbers. The parents helped them put their luggage into the car's suitcase. Xiao Yi and her siblings sat in the middle. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao were in a row. Xiao Guai and another girl sat in front of her brothers. Xia Dong carefully adjusted their seat belts and then told them one by one, "You Gigai kids, don't quarrel. Take care of each other, okay?" Xiao Guai kissed her cheek. "Okay, mommy." Xiao Yi was the eldest. She patted her chest. "Mommy, don't worry. I will take good care of my brother and sister." Xiao Bao said, "Mom, don't worry. We're just going out to play. Nothing will happen." The school bus was about to start, so Xia Dong and the other parents were forced to get off. She noticed that there was a black Mercedes-Benz in front and behind the school bus. When the Mercedes-Benz in the back passed in front of her, a head suddenly popped out of the window and chuckled at her. "Young madam," Xia Dong was stunned. It was not until the 3 cars were far away that she realized that the man in the security uniform was Ah Bao. It must be Ah Bao. No wonder Bailey Han was so calm. He had already arranged everything. She suddenly felt like she had been played by her husband. Tears welled up in his eyes. Bailey Han was working in his office when his phone rang. It was a terrifying ringtone. "My wife is calling, my wife is calling." He smiled and put the phone to his ear. "Wifey." Then came the sound of gnashing teeth. "Bailey Han, you're in big trouble." He laughed. "You found out." She said angrily, "Why did you hide it from me?" He laughed even more happily. "I like to see you busy like a headless fly." "Oh, I'm going crazy." "You're still laughing. Do you have fun teasing me?" A certain someone was already in a state of rage. He was laughing so hard that he was almost out of breath. "Wifey, you calm down. When we get home tonight, I'll let you do whatever you want with me." "Humph, just you wait. I won't let you off." Xia Dong rubbed his chin and seriously considered whether he should use chili water or tiger stool. Bailey Han. "Honey, you're too bloody and violent." After driving for more than an hour, the school bus from Imperial Kindergarten stopped at a small village about 50 kilometers away from City A. Many of the villagers in this village were working in the city, and there were only the elderly, women, and children left in the family. The culture of the villagers was also relatively simple. The school had already communicated with the village chief and rented 10 houses from 10 families for the children and teachers to stay in. As for the bodyguards, they would also sleep on the floor in the children's houses to make it easier for them to protect them. There were a total of 20 children, 9 girls and 11 boys. Because Bailey Han had specially informed the school, the teacher arranged for Xiao Yi and her siblings to stay in the same homestay. There were 8 girls and 9 boys left. 2 girls to a room and 3 boys to a room. There was a bodyguard in each room to ensure their safety. Abao was responsible for Xiao Yi and her siblings' safety. The children in the kindergarten were not surprised to see the bodyguards because they all had many bodyguards at home. When they went to and from school, they were also protected by bodyguards. However, Xiao Guai and her siblings were different because their bodyguards were old acquaintances. Xiao Guai quietly tugged at Xiao Yi's sleeve and whispered, "Brother Yi, that bodyguard looks like Uncle Bao." Xiao Yi whispered in her ear, "It doesn't look like him. He is Uncle Bao." "Oh, why is Uncle Bao here?" The little cutie blinked her eyes in confusion. The smart Xiao Yi thought for a moment, then puffed up her cheeks and said, "Because these bodyguards were sent by Daddy." "Oh, Daddy is so awesome." Xiao Guai's eyes were filled with admiration. Don't be so loud. Don't tell anyone. This is a secret, okay?" Xiao Bao suddenly came over and bared his teeth at the two of them. Okay, children. Now that you have checked your rooms, please hand over all your snacks, toys and phones." There were 2 kindergarten teachers who came with them this time. One was called Ding Lin, and the other was called Yu Jinjin. They were both beautiful girls in their early 20s. At this moment, the one who clapped her hands and announced the rules was Ding Lin. Why? I don't want to hand over my toys. We can't hand over our phones either. I want to talk to Daddy and Mommy." Many children began to protest, but Xiao Yi and the other 2 did not feel any pressure. Xiao Yi raised her chin proudly and said, "Mommy is so wise not to prepare snacks and toys." Xiao Bao grinned. He would not tell Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai that he had secretly seen his mother prepare 3 big bags of things, but his father had forcibly stopped her. Although the children strongly protested, Ding Lin and Yu Jinjin still took away their snacks and toys. 2 delicate little girls cried loudly, saying that they wanted to go home and not participate in the activity. The scene was chaotic for a moment. Fortunately, the teachers were very patient. They comforted and persuaded them to quiet down. Then Ding Lin said, "Before we confiscate your phones, you can call Daddy and Mommy to tell them that you are safe. You can't talk for more than 5 minutes." The children hurriedly made the phone calls. After Xiao Yi dialed the number, he handed the small phone to Xiao Guai like a big brother. Xiao Guai said in a childish voice, "Mommy, we are fine now. I am very obedient and I didn't cry." Okay, I know. The teacher said that you can only talk for 5 minutes. I will give the phone to my brothers." Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao also talked to Xia Dong on the phone. They manly comforted her not to worry and said that things were going smoothly. Ding Lin and Yu Jinjin finally heaved a sigh of relief when they finally took away the children's phones. Then it was lunchtime. Everyone was given a boiled egg, a boiled potato, and a steaming hot meat bun. The children carried their lunch and returned to their little nest. Although the room was very simple, it was very clean. There was a very large wooden bed that was completely big enough for the 3 of them to lie down. The 3 children sat on small stools. Small bowls of food were placed on the small wooden table. Xiao Yi took out a stack of wet wipes from the suitcase and gave one to each child. After the 3 children wiped their hands clean, Xiao Bao picked up an egg. "Gigai, eat the meat bun first. I will peel the egg for you." Oh, Xiao Guai hugged the steaming hot meat bun and carefully took a bite. Her delicate brows furrowed. "It's so hot, silly, blow it first." Xiao Yi took the meat bun from her hands and patiently helped her blow it. "Okay, you can eat now." "Hee, thank you, big brother." Although the conditions were very difficult, the children took care of each other and were very sweet. The children took an hour of lunch break. Then the teacher took a loudspeaker and went door to door to wake them up. Some of the children were grumpy when they woke up. After they got up, they hugged their quilts and cried loudly. The teacher's hair almost turned white from worry. She didn't know if the spring outing could be completed successfully. The bodyguards were also in a particularly heavy mood. Although the boss had said that as long as the children weren't harmed by bad people and didn't have any accidents, it was very difficult to pretend to be deaf and mute when their ears were full of the children's cries. Therefore, while Ah Bao expressed deep sympathy for his subordinates, he was also very glad that his young master and young miss were very well behaved and never cried. "All right, children, stand properly. Now let's start counting." After making sure that all the children were present, the teacher, Yu Jinjin, clapped her hands and said, "The arrangement for this afternoon is like this. We will first enjoy the scenery in this area. After an hour, everyone will go to the orchards and fields to help the farmers pick fruits and vegetables. At 4:30, we will gather on the grass by the river and prepare to make dinner. Is everyone understood?" "Understood," the children said in unison. Xiao Bao raised her little hand. "Teacher, I have a question." "Classmate Xiao Bao, please ask." "Teacher, is dinner prepared in the form of a picnic?" "Yes, when it's time to make dinner, I will explain some rules in detail. Now let's enjoy the scenery first. Do you have any questions?" "No," a soft child's voice said. "Okay, now children, please follow the team and don't get separated." Although this mountain village was remote, the natural scenery was very good. On the hillside, peach blossoms were blooming and the clouds were rising. A clear river flowed by the side of the field. Large golden rapeseed flowers bloomed enthusiastically. An old hen was leading a group of chicks in search of food in the field, clucking happily. Attention xianxia 866. Chapter 334. For the children born in the city, it was their first time seeing a real village. They widened their eyes in curiosity and ran around excitedly on the ridge of the fields. Some of the bolder children ran to the outside of the courtyard wall and peeped at the puppies at the gate of the courtyard. Woof woof woof, the puppy suddenly jumped up and bared its teeth at them warily. The children screamed and ran back, but the puppy did not chase after them. It turned out that there was a chain around its neck and the other end was tied to a pillar. The children laughed heartily and gathered their courage to go to the gate of the courtyard to play with the puppy. An old woman came out of the room when she heard the dog barking. Her right foot was not very nimble, so she walked with a limp. There was a large scar on the left side of her face. Although it was covered by her hair, it could still be seen clearly. "Ah, a monster!" A little girl screamed in fear when she saw the old woman's face. "It's so scary. Is that an old witch?" Another little girl grabbed her companion's hand tightly and whispered, "Let's get out of here quickly. The old witch will eat people." Xiao Bao glared at the two timid students. "Don't talk nonsense. It's very rude." The old woman acted as if she did not hear them and limped towards them. The other children screamed and retreated. Xiao Bao stood in place and said politely, "Grandma, I'm sorry to disturb you. We want to play with the puppy. Is that okay?" The old woman's eyes were cloudy. Her gaze fell on Xiao Bao and her voice was a little hoarse. "Don't play here. The puppy is very fierce and will bite people. Go out, go out." She stretched out her arms and drove the children out as if she was driving away small animals. Then she picked up a hoe from the gate and walked towards the fields in the distance. "What a strange person." "Yes, yes." Xiao Bao ignored the students' discussion and walked forward with his hands behind his back. He went to find Xiao Guai, who was picking wild flowers in the fields, and Xiao Yi, who was catching butterflies on the hillside to take home as a specimen. Once the little guys integrated into the environment, they were like wild horses. The teachers did not deliberately restrict their nature. As long as they did not do anything dangerous, they were allowed to play around. An hour passed quickly. The teacher gathered the children and divided them into two groups. Each group had 10 children and was led by a teacher. Xiao Yi and the other two were in Group A, which was led by Ding Lin, and Group B, which was led by Jinjin. The large group of people headed towards Strawberry Garden. The strawberry garden in the village was about 10 mu of land. The owners of the two largest plots of land were Fu Qinghai and Legenda. These were the two strawberry gardens that the children were going to today. Ding Lin took the children from Group A to Fu Qinghai's strawberry field. Fu Qinghai was an honest farmer in his 50s, with white hair and a face full of wrinkles. Facing so many pairs of innocent eyes, he rubbed his bark-like hands uncomfortably and said cheerfully, "Welcome to my strawberry garden." Ding Lin smiled and said, "Uncle Fu, can I trouble you to briefly explain to the children how to grow strawberries later?" Of course, of course. Everyone follow me." Before entering the strawberry greenhouse, Fu Qinghai gave each child a small bamboo basket for them to pick strawberries. Inside the wide greenhouse, rows of strawberry trees were neatly arranged. Between the green leaves there were red strawberries. The rich fragrance of the strawberries filled the air, and it was so sweet that it was tempting. Xiao Bao was the first to notice that there was a hunched figure squatting in front of a row not far away. Judging by her movements, she should be picking strawberries. So many people came in noisily, but she did not look back and continued to do her own thing. Although she could not see her face, Xiao Bao recognized her from her back. She was the old granny with bad legs. Ding Lin also noticed and could not help but take a few more glances. Fu Qinghai explained with a smile, "That's my wife. She has bad legs and is a little introverted. Teacher, please don't take offense." "No, no, we're the ones who are disturbing you." Ding Lin smiled politely. "Uncle Fu, where do you think we should start?" Fu Qinghai pointed to the ground beside his feet. "Let's start here. Children, I'll explain to you the techniques of picking strawberries." The children carried their small bamboo baskets and squatted in the ditch. They looked up and listened attentively to Fu Qinghai's explanation of how to identify ripe strawberries and how to pick them. "Okay, everyone can start picking strawberries now." While the children were enthusiastically picking strawberries, Fu Qinghai walked around them and gave them pointers from time to time. Occasionally he would explain some knowledge about growing strawberries. Because they were too young, he did not go into too much detail. Most of the time he talked about some interesting details such as what diseases strawberries were prone to, what insects liked to eat strawberries, and so on. Xiao Guai picked a red strawberry. It was crystal clear and so cute. She could not help but sniff it and lick her pink lips. She looked up at Fu Qinghai and said sweetly, "Grandpa, these strawberries look so delicious. Can I have one?" Fu Qinghai smiled wholeheartedly. The wrinkles on his face piled up together. "Little girl, although these strawberries look very clean, you still have to wash them before you can eat them. There's a sink over there. You can wash them there." He raised his hand and pointed to a spot near the door. There was a sink with a running water pipe. It was not very high and Xiao Guai could reach it on her tiptoes. "Oh, thank you, Grandpa." Xiao Guai smiled brightly, revealing her cute little dimples. Her beautiful big eyes twinkled. "Grandpa, can I take 3? I still have 2 older brothers." Fu Qinghai smiled and said, Of course. You can eat as much as you want. Other children, if you want to eat strawberries, you can also wash them at the sink." The kindergarten had already paid him a generous sum of money. The money was enough to buy a few hundred kilograms of strawberries. "Okay, thank you, Grandpa," the tender voices of children sounded. It turned out that Xiao Guai was not the only child who coveted the cute strawberries. They were just too embarrassed to say it out loud. The children held strawberries in their hands and ran in 2s and 3s to the sink at the door. Xiao Yi and Xiao Bao told Xiao Guai not to move and that they would go wash the strawberries. Xiao Guai refused and insisted on doing it herself. She was not greedy at all. She took 3 strawberries and ran to the sink with her little butt swaying. She lined up behind the other children. At this moment, the old woman who was picking strawberries not far away walked towards the exit with a basket full of strawberries. After Xiao Guai finished washing the strawberries, she happily walked back. She bumped into the old woman who was carrying a bamboo basket. She sweetly called out, "Hello, Grandma." The old woman stopped in her tracks and stared at Xiao Guai. After carefully examining her, a complicated expression surged in her eyes. There was shock, disbelief, and pain. Xiao Guai then noticed the scar on the old woman's face. Her little mouth opened in shock, but she did not show any fear. After staring blankly for about 2 seconds, she suddenly stretched out her little hand and showed the strawberries in her palm. She smiled brightly and said, "Grandma, thank you for your strawberries." She skipped away like a lively little rabbit. The old woman turned her head stiffly, her eyes fixed on the little figure. She watched as the little girl ran in front of the 2 little boys and fed them 1 strawberry each before putting the last one into her own mouth. The 3 children laughed merrily, and the laughter flew to her side. She opened her mouth and breathed rapidly. Her chest rose and fell rapidly. The bamboo basket in her hand seemed to weigh 1,000 kilograms, and her body was tilting towards the ground. "Wife, what's wrong with you? Are you sick?" Fu Qinghai noticed that something was wrong with his wife and hurried over. He snatched the bamboo basket from her hand and placed it on the ground, supporting her with one hand. The old woman supported her chest with one hand and slowly shook her head. "I'm fine. Go to your work. Don't worry about me." "You don't look like you're fine." Fu Qinghai took out a bottle of spray from the pocket of her coat and sprayed it at her nose and mouth a few times. He grumbled, "I told you to rest at home, but you didn't listen and insisted on coming out to work. Are you feeling better now?" She nodded. "I'm much better. I'm fine now. Hurry up and go home to rest. I'll do the work in the field." She sighed. "I'm the one who dragged you down." Fu Qinghai lowered his voice and said, "We're already an old couple. Why are you still saying this? Let's go. I'll take you home." "It's okay. I can go back by myself. You should stay here and take care of the guests." The old woman patted his arm. "All right then. Be careful on the way back." Fu Qinghai sighed as he looked at his wife's back as she walked away. The old woman came out of the greenhouse and looked at the land full of spring with a dazed expression. Tears gradually welled up in her eyes. Half an hour later, the strawberry picking was completed. Each child, carrying a basket full of ripe strawberries, walked down the country lane, laughing and talking as they returned to their temporary lodgings. "Gigai, give me the bamboo basket. Big brother will help you twist it." "Gigai, I'll twist it for you." The 2 little brothers stretched out their hands at the same time to help Xiao Guai twist the bamboo basket. She looked at Xiao Yi and then looked at Xiao Bao. She smiled brightly. "Don't fight with me. I'll twist it myself. Mommy said that you should do your own things. That's what a good child should do." Ding Lin, who was walking in front of them, overheard their conversation. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. The Bailey family's upbringing was really good. The children they raised were polite and sensible. After putting the strawberries back in their residence, the teacher led them to the field to help the farmer uncle pick vegetables. The enthusiastic uncle gave them a lot of fresh vegetables that could be used during the picnic. At 4:30 p.m., everyone gathered on the lawn by the river. The children chattered non-stop. Yu Jinjin clapped her hands to quiet them down and arranged the next tasks. Attention Hongxia 866. Chapter 335. Yu Jinjin announced, "Next we will start preparing dinner. For tonight's dinner, you will need to find your own ingredients and collect your own firewood. As for the pots, pans, ladles and other kitchen utensils, they will be prepared by the teachers. Tonight's dinner will also be cooked by the teachers." Ding Lin added, "We will still follow the previous grouping. Group A and Group B, each group will elect a group leader. The group leader will arrange for everyone to search for ingredients or collect firewood. Each group will be given a map. You just need to search for ingredients according to the houses marked on the map. Do you understand?" A little boy raised his small hand. "Teacher, we can only go to the places marked on the map to find ingredients?" "Yes, that's right." Ding Lin did not explain. The houses marked on the map were arranged by them in advance and they paid the owners. "Then what do we need to find? There are some dishes that I don't even recognize." A little girl said softly. "It's okay. There are names and pictures of the ingredients on the back of the map." Ding Lin passed the map to the children. Sure enough, there were pictures on the back of the map. There were cucumbers, potatoes, tomatoes and so on. A few minutes later, Ding Lin said, "Now that you have received the map, you have to find the ingredients and firewood in an hour, then come back here. Do you understand?" The children all shouted at the same time, "Understood." "Now I'll leave everything to you. Teacher, you and I won't bother about everyone. We'll just wait for everyone to come back and cook. We'll give a reward to the group that finishes quickly and well. On the other hand, we'll punish the group that doesn't do well. Okay, the time starts now." Ding Lin looked at the watch on her wrist and seriously noted down the time. The children who were initially a little lazy immediately became alert when they heard that it was a competition. The two groups immediately separated and gathered for a meeting. Group A had Xiaoyi and Xiaobao. The two of them were the most popular in the class, so everyone unanimously decided that they would be the group leader and vice group leader. Xiaoyi was the big brother, so Xiaobao also listened to his orders. Xiaoyi puffed out her chest and her pink cheeks looked serious. She seemed to be giving orders. "Xiaobao, you go with Xiaoguai, Xiaohao, Xiaohan and Cici to look for ingredients. Jiejia, Hongxian, Xiaorui and Tian will stay here to collect firewood." There were 4 girls and 6 boys in their group. They worked in pairs of 2 and 3. Xiaoyi guessed that the school had already prepared the ingredients. As long as they found the right farmer, it should be easy. Therefore he asked Xiaoguai and Xiaobao to go together. Xiaobao raised his right hand and saluted. "Team leader, I promise to complete the mission." The 4 girls were amused by him, and they started to work while talking and laughing. Team B left after them and headed in a different direction. Xiaoyi led the soldiers to the forest in front. Among them, the oldest was only 6 years old. It was obviously difficult for them to break off the branches from the trees. Xiaoyi asked the 2 girls to be responsible for collecting the existing branches in the forest, while he and the 2 boys were responsible for the branches on the trees. Xiaoyi looked at them and frowned. If this went on, there was no way they could collect enough firewood to make dinner. He pondered for a moment and his eyes suddenly lit up. He shouted, "Uncle Bao." A Bao who was hiding somewhere quickly appeared. In front of outsiders he did not call Xiaoyi young master. Instead he called him by his name. "Xiaoyi, what's the matter?" "Uncle Bao, you must have brought a dagger, right?" Xiaoyi quickly ran in front of him and stretched out her hand. "Lend me the dagger." Ah Bao was alert. "What do you want to do?" "I won't do anything bad. Hurry up and lend it to me." "Okay." Ah Bao pulled out a dagger from his calf and handed it over. "This dagger is very sharp. Be careful." "Got it. Thanks. You can disappear now." Xiaoyi turned and ran. Ah Bao's mouth twitched. How could he be at ease and disappear when the young master had such a dangerous item in his hands? Thus he stood in place and waited to see what Xiaoyi was going to do. Little Wingzi ran back to his companions and mumbled something to them. Ah Bao saw little Wingzi stab the dagger at his waist and walk up to a pine tree that was as thick as a bowl. Little Wingzi wrapped his arms around it and clamped his legs together before climbing up. Ah Bao's heart was in his throat. "Xiaoyi, hurry up and come down. It's dangerous." Xiaoyi was an expert at climbing trees. He quickly climbed up and soon reached a branch that was as thick as a wrist. His small body stood on it and he looked like he was going to fall at any time. The 2 girls could not help but scream. Ah Bao rushed forward and stood under the tree with his arms open. "Xiaoyi, it's too dangerous. Hurry up and come down." Xiaoyi's expression did not change. "Uncle Bao, don't worry. I'll be fine. Don't stand here. I'm going to chop the branches. Everyone else start working. We don't have much time left." So this was what he was going to use his dagger for. Xiao Yi held onto the tree trunk with one hand and held the dagger with the other. He aimed at the branches beside him and chopped them down. It was indeed a sharp dagger. Even though he did not have much strength, a branch that was as thick as 2 fingers was chopped off and fell to the ground. When the other 2 boys saw this, they looked for small trees within their strength and planned to break off the branches. Xiao Yi said, "Don't choose those small saplings. They will die if they break off the branches. Also, pine trees and cypress trees are flammable. Even wet firewood can be ignited. Look for these 2 types of branches." The oldest, Hong Xian, asked curiously, "Xiao Yi, how do you know so much?" Xiao Yi raised his eyebrows proudly. "Daddy told me." Fortunately, Daddy had told him about his survival experiences on a deserted island. That was how he learned this knowledge. Just as the woodcutter Xiao Yi was busy chopping firewood, Xiao Bao led Xiao Guai and the others to start collecting ingredients according to the route on the map. The process was very smooth. Soon they had collected 2 big bags of ingredients. Naturally, the 2 boys were holding them. The last house was Fu Qinghai's house. Xiao Bao asked the boys who were holding the bags to wait by the roadside. He led Xiao Guai and Cici forward and knocked on the door. "Hello, is anyone home?" After a few minutes, they heard the door creak open. An old lady appeared at the door. The moment she saw Xiao Guai, her eyes lit up. But soon, her eyes dimmed again. She asked, "What can I do for you?" Xiao Guai tilted his head, revealing his cute little dimples. "Grandma, can you give us some vegetables?" The old lady's voice softened. "What kind of vegetables do you want?" Xiao Guai quickly tugged at Xiao Bao's hand. "Brother, take a look. What's missing?" "Grandma, we also need cucumbers, potatoes, eggs, and fish. Do you have any of these?" The old lady looked at Xiao Bao and then at Xiao Guai. So they were siblings. The 2 children did look a little alike. She nodded. "You 2 come in with me." With that, she walked into the yard and pulled the puppy aside to prevent it from biting the children. "Cici, stay here and wait for us," Xiao Bao instructed. He held Xiao Guai's hand and followed behind the old lady. The yard wasn't big. Some flowers and plants were planted and it was very clean. There were 4 or 5 red brick bungalows. The old lady led them directly to the kitchen. She bent down in front of the fridge to look for what they needed. She asked Xiao Guai casually, "Little girl, you look very cute. Do you look like your mother?" Xiao Guai replied crisply, "Yes, everyone says that I look like my mother. Granite also said that I look exactly like my mother when we were young. It's as if we were cast from the same mold." Pa. An egg slipped from the old lady's hand and smashed on the ground. Xiao Bao said, "Grandma, where's the broom? I'll help you clean it." "No need." The old lady refused but quickly changed her mind. "It's in the yard outside. Help me get it." Xiao Bao responded and turned to run into the yard. The old lady suddenly went up to Xiao Guai and asked in a low voice, "Little girl, what's your mother's name?" Xiao Guai blinked her big beautiful eyes. "Grandma, why do you want to know my mother's name?" Daddy had once taught her not to tell strangers her parents' names. The old lady was stunned and said, "Because you look very much like my friend's daughter?" Xiao Guai replied with an "oh." She tilted her head and looked at her, as if she was considering whether the old lady was a good person. After a moment she smiled and said, "My mother's name is Xia Dong." Xia Dong. Xia Dong. It's really her. The old lady's body suddenly trembled, and she almost knocked over everything in her hands. Her face suddenly became very ugly. She opened her mouth and gasped for breath, as if someone was choking her neck. "Grandma, what's wrong?" Xiao Guai was so anxious that she was about to cry. Xiao Bao happened to walk in with a broom. When he saw the situation, he was shocked and quickly ran forward to help the old lady sit on a chair. "Grandma, are you okay? Don't be afraid." "I'm fine." The old lady comforted them as she took out a small spray from her pocket and sprayed it in front of her nose. After a few minutes she finally calmed down. She let out a long sigh and looked at the concerned children around her. She couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat, and tears almost fell from her eyes. "Grandma, are you okay?" The 2 children asked in unison. "I'm fine. Grandma is fine." The old lady wiped the corners of her eyes and forced a smile. However, because of the scar on her face, her smile looked a little scary. She reached out to touch the 2 children's hair and said softly, "How old are you?" Xiao Guai said first, "We're 5 years old. We're in kindergarten." "Good, very good." The old lady's eyes were full of smiles. She looked at them carefully and asked softly, "How are your parents?" "Come and see." Hangcha 866. Chapter 336. Xiao Guai nodded proudly. "Very good. My daddy loves my mommy very much. Although Xiao Bao was a little confused, he felt that the old grandma was not a bad person and nodded. They're all very good. That's good. The old grandma's smile widened. After a while, she retracted her hand and said, I've prepared everything you need. Go back early. It's going to be dark soon. She put the things she had tidied into a convenience bag and sent them to the gate. Thank you, Grandma. Goodbye, Grandma. The children waved at her. She smiled and waved back. Her hunched body leaned against the gate until their figures disappeared from her sight. Then, she slowly retracted her gaze and returned to the yard with a lonely expression. When the sun set, the children rushed back to the river with the treasures they had found. Soon they found 2 cooking stoves on the lawn. The teacher had already washed the pots and pans and was waiting for them to come back so that they could start cooking. Wow, teacher, you're so amazing. Are these used for cooking? How did you build them? Ding Lin had already used the firewood Xiao Yi and the others had picked up to start the stove. She wiped the sweat off her face and smiled as she explained to the children how to build a simple stove and how to ignite the firewood to make the fire burn brighter. Then, she instructed the students in Team A that the boys would be in charge of fetching water, the girls would be in charge of washing the vegetables, and she would handle the fresh fish by the river. Under the teacher's lead, the 2 groups of people started to cook. Halfway through cooking, Team B ran out of firewood. The children stared at each other, and Yu Xinxin could not help but break out in cold sweat. The children who were in charge of collecting firewood were very innocent. They raised their little hands pitifully. Teacher, we've already worked very hard. Boo-hoo, it's okay. Teacher will think of a way. Yu Xinxin comforted them. She threw down the half-cooked vegetables and ran to Team A's side. Teacher Ding, do you have enough firewood? We have enough. What? Ding Lin was busy with the fish in the pot and did not notice what was happening in Team B. Hong Shen shouted, Teacher Ding, Team B ran out of firewood. Yu Xinxin coughed and awkwardly said, Yeah, we ran out of firewood. If you have extra, can you lend me some? Sure, Xiaoyi chopped a lot so there should be some extra. Take some with you. Ding Lin generously gave her half of the firewood. Woodcutter Xiao Yi was in a good mood when he saw that the firewood he chopped could help his opponent. Dinner was finally ready. The girls had already laid out a beautiful tablecloth on the lawn and arranged the bowls and chopsticks. The 2 sets of dishes were placed together and everyone formed a big circle. The children who were picky at home seemed to have been starved for a long time. Their eyes were glowing with a green light as they stared at the fragrant dishes and kept swallowing their saliva. All right, let's eat. Don't waste food. At the teacher's command, the children picked up their bowls and wolfed down the food. They were starving. Gigai, be careful. It's hot. Xiao Yi picked up an egg with her chopsticks and placed it in Xiao Gigai's bowl. Xiao Bao immediately removed the bones from the fish and placed it in her bowl. Gigai, eat the fish. There are no bones. The other girls were envious. They also wanted such a handsome and caring brother. They wanted to go home and ask their mommy to give birth to one. After dinner, the stars were already shining in the sky. The teacher used the leftover firewood to make a bonfire. Everyone sat around the bonfire and listened to the teacher's summary of the day's activities. Ding Lin glanced at the children who were staring at her and said, Everyone did a great job today. Did you all learn a lot? Yes, they said in unison. We would like to especially commend Xiao Yi. He has great organizational and leadership skills. He also did a great job collecting firewood. Please give him a round of applause. Enthusiastic applause rang out. Brother Yi, you're so awesome. Xiao Gigai clapped excitedly. Xiao Yi was used to being praised since he was young, but he had never been as happy as he was today. He received everyone's admiring gazes. This was the first time he felt shy in front of so many people. His handsome little face was flushed red and his eyes were sparkling. He didn't know where to look. Group A, who won the competition, was rewarded with a chance to talk to their parents on the phone for 5 minutes. The children in Group A were so happy that they jumped up and down. The children in Group B could only look on with envy. Group B, who lost the competition, was punished with a confession of truth. Everyone had to say something from the bottom of their heart. The children all talked at once. I don't like green peppers. Every time mommy makes me eat green peppers, I secretly spit them out. I'm very timid. I don't dare to sleep alone at night. I hate my desk mate because he always bullies me. Finally, it was the turn of an introverted little girl named Lu Yi. She stood up and looked at Xiao Yi with her clear eyes. She mustered up her courage and said, I like Bailey Yi. I want to marry him when I grow up. Everyone burst into laughter. Lu Yi sat down with a red face. She bit her lip and lowered her head without saying a word. The girl sitting next to her turned around and said something to her. Her head hung even lower. Xiao Yi, I didn't expect you to be so popular. Xiao Bao poked Xiao Yi's arm with a mischievous smile. Xiao Yi's cheeks turned red again. Xiao Bao laughed at him for 20 years because of this. Yu Jinjin clapped her hands and helped Lu Yi and Xiao Yi out of the situation. Everyone is tired today. Let's go home and rest early. Teacher Ding and I will wake everyone up tomorrow morning. After breakfast we will return to the city. Does anyone have any questions? No. Alright then. Uncle Bodyguard will send everyone back to their respective residences now. Everyone needs to wash up and change on their own. Don't run around at night. Gigai can sleep. Any questions? No. Yu Jinjin breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, these precious children knew how to brush their teeth and wash their faces. Otherwise she and Ding Lin would be very busy. However, it was still too early for her to be optimistic. This was a rural area. Several families did not have bathrooms at all. The children could not bathe either. There were a few spoiled children. Although they said that there was no problem, their faces were not clean. They did not know how to comb their hair and had to be taken care of by teachers. Little winged hero walked at the front in high spirits, leading his little brother and little sister back home. The owner of the homestay had already turned on the lights in the room and prepared 2 basins of hot water to welcome their return. Gigai, you can't bathe in Uncle's house. Just wipe yourself. Xiao Yi wet a towel in the basin, wrung it dry and handed it to Xiao Guai. Xiao Bao had already found pajamas from Xiao Guai's suitcase and placed them by the bed. Gigai will go out first. If you need anything, just shout. Got it? Xiao Guai responded softly. After the 2 brothers left, she closed the door and was about to take off her clothes to wipe herself when she suddenly heard Xiao Bao's voice from outside. Grandma, why are you here? Xiao Guai quickly put down the towel, opened the door and called out crisply, Grandma, you're here. The old woman leaned on a walking stick, held a flashlight and held a thermos in her hand. She smiled and said, Grandma was worried that you didn't eat enough, so I specially brought chicken soup for you. Come, hurry into the house and drink it while it's hot. The children looked at her eager eyes and didn't have the heart to tell her that they were actually very full now. Hurry, don't stand at the door. Hurry up and come in. The old woman sat on a chair and opened the thermos. A fragrant smell immediately wafted out. 3 small bowls were filled with soup and placed on the table. The children looked at each other and finally reached out to pick up the bowls at the same time. Xiao Guai took a sip, smiled and sighed with satisfaction. Wow, it's delicious. It's as delicious as Mommy's. The old woman smiled. Drink more if it's delicious. Okay. The old woman looked around the room and saw the 2 basins and the pajamas on the bed. She immediately understood and said softly, I can take a bath at home. Do you want to come? Xiao Yi didn't know what happened to Xiao Bao and the others when they were looking for ingredients, so she was still wary of the old woman. She said politely, Grandma, we don't have to trouble you. We are already very grateful that you brought us chicken soup. The old woman looked a little disappointed. She glanced at Xiao Guai, who was holding a bowl of soup and drinking it, and said, How about this? I'll help your sister wipe her body. She's young and can't do these things by herself. Xiao Yi was still hesitating, but Xiao Bao had already agreed. Okay, then I'll have to trouble you, Grandma. 10 minutes later. The door was closed and Xiao Guai's giggles could be heard from time to time. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi were squatting in a corner of the yard. Xiao Yi muttered unhappily, How can you agree to a stranger's request so casually? Xiao Bao lowered his voice and said, Grandma isn't a bad person. I've already checked. Also, didn't you just drink her chicken soup? Xiao Yi muttered, Grandma was so enthusiastic. I couldn't refuse. Xiao Bao patted his shoulder. It's okay. She really isn't a bad person. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Xiao Guai was wearing cute plaid bear pajamas and her little face was clean. The old woman held her in her arms and wiped her face with children's moisturizer. Her rough fingers rubbed against her cheeks and Xiao Guai couldn't help but laugh. Grandma, it's so itchy. It'll be done soon. Bear with it. The old woman's eyes were kind, and her movements were very gentle. Xiao Bao and Xiao Yi saw that they were getting along so well. They looked at each other and were a little surprised. The old woman seemed to like Xiao Guai very much. When you go to bed at night, cover yourself with a blanket and close the door. If you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, wake up Uncle to accompany you. Do you understand? The old woman reminded the 3 children repeatedly before she left. Okay, Grandma. Be careful when you go home. It's very dark on the road. The 3 children walked her to the gate of the yard. The old woman waved at the children. Go back to sleep. It wasn't until the 3 small figures left that she sighed and limped home with the help of her walking stick. Come and see. Hangcha 866. Chapter 337. Xia Dong was not used to the nights when the children were not at home. As she walked, she accidentally walked to the door of the children's room. She suddenly remembered that they were not at home and returned to the bedroom in loneliness. Bailey Han came out of the study and saw Xia Dong in such a depressed state. She was curled up on a plump fabric sofa. She looked so small and pitiful. He squeezed to her side and pulled her into his arms. You missed the children? Yes. Xia Dong was like a caterpillar. She moved into the most comfortable position in his arms and said sullenly, Hai is also asleep. I suddenly feel like I've become a housewife with nothing to do. All I do is revolve around my husband and children. When you're not at home, I don't know what to do. Bailey Han lowered his head and kissed her hair. Do you want to go out to work? She looked up at him, her eyes full of anticipation. Will you agree? The corners of his lips turned up. What do you think? You agree? Xia Dong hugged his neck excitedly and kissed him hard on the lips. He held the back of her head and deepened the kiss. He did not let go of her until their breathing became irregular. His voice was magnetic and hoarse. If you feel bored and want to go out to work, I won't stop you. But you can't work too hard. Yes, they definitely won't. Xia Dong had yet to recover from that tender kiss. Her cheeks were flushed and her voice was soft and charming. But, will Grandma and Mom and Dad disagree? Most wealthy families did not want their daughters-in-law to show her face outside. He hugged her tightly. Grandma is very open-minded. As long as we can convince her, Dad and Mom will be fine. It's not good for me to show my face in this matter. You should have a good talk with them. Xia Dong understood. If she persuaded the three elders, they would definitely think that Bailey Han was too obedient and controlled by her. They might even have some ideas about her. So it was more appropriate for her to do it herself. Thank you, hubby. I thought you wouldn't support me. She lay on his chest, her heart full of warmth. Bailey Han stroked her long hair and chuckled. I like to see you working. You're beautiful. He clearly remembered that when she was the editor-in-chief of Charm magazine, she had discussed advertising cooperation with Renjijia. She had exuded a mature and confident charm, which had made his eyes light up. Xia Dong wrapped her arms around his neck and leaned against him. She smiled and said, Hubby, you're so sweet tonight. Are you afraid that I'll punish you? He raised his eyebrows. How can that be? Didn't I say that you can do whatever you want with me? Have you thought of how you want to deal with me? A mischievous smile appeared on Xia Dong's face. I didn't have any ideas at first, but now I suddenly have an idea. What do you want to do? He bit her ear, emphasizing the last word. It was a word that made people's imagination run wild. She unceremoniously bit his earlobe and snorted. I'll let you see how powerful I am. Let's see if you dare to hide it from me in the future. She was still brooding over the fact that he had secretly sent bodyguards to protect the children. His sexy laughter came from the depths of his throat as his chest heaved up and down. Wifey, I can't wait to see how powerful you are. She pinched his face and said to him in a libertine tone, Little girl, go to bed and wait for me. His chest heaved up and down even more. He almost laughed until he was out of breath. Wifey, so you have this kind of hobby when you're angry. Xia Dong's cheeks flushed red. However, since she had already taken this step, she was going to go all out. She angrily patted his chest. Be serious. I'm being serious. Bailey Han held back his laughter. It wasn't easy for him to get this kind of benefit. He was afraid that if he continued to laugh, his wife would shrink back. He nodded seriously. Okay, master. This servant will go lie on the bed and wait for your pleasure. That's right. Go quickly. Xia Dong deliberately touched the bulge in front of his chest and then quickly jumped down from his body. By the time she found what she needed and rushed back to the bedroom, Bailey Han had really stripped himself down to a pair of shorts and was spread out on the bed like a pancake. His limbs were spread out, and a certain part of his body was already standing up impatiently saying, Hey hey hey. Hello. Xia Dong's cheeks reddened, but a certain person's expression was extremely calm. It was as if he was talking about the weather as he called out to her. Master, this servant can't wait any longer. Xia Dong almost spat out blood. He was too perverted. Don't be anxious. I'll be right there. She coughed and thought of her punishment plan. She forced herself to calm down and climbed onto the ridiculously large bed. She took out a few neckties from her pocket and tied his wrists to the headboard. Wifey. Bailey Han had a bad premonition. His wife had turned into a little devil. He could almost see two small horns on her head. Xia Dong smiled evilly. After confirming that he couldn't move, She knelt by the bed and slowly took off her clothes. After taking off a piece, she casually threw it off the bed. Not long after, she was only left with a pair of black lacy underwear. Her silky long hair poured down and half covered her beautiful figure. Her soft and towering breasts were enveloped by the soft light and her entire body was suffused with an alluring luster. Bailey Hans Adams' apple bobbed, and his deep eyes blazed with fire. She deliberately threw him a coquettish glance and supported herself with her arms. Like a lazy little wild cat, she slowly climbed up his body. Her silky smooth skin was tightly pressed against him, rubbing against him inch by inch. Her buds had already bloomed and were slowly moving up his sturdy abdomen. As she teased him, sparks flew in all directions, almost setting the prairie ablaze. Her concave area rubbed against his convex area. The moist heat soaked the black lacy underwear and stained his scalding skin. His mouth was dry and his eyes were burning. He panted heavily and his smooth chin was raised in impatience. Beads of sweat rolled down his forehead. He was already having a hard time enduring and was about to explode from the pain. But that little devil was still unwilling to let him go. She deliberately rubbed against his chest and licked his earlobe with the tip of her tongue. She whispered seductively, "Ahun, I'm so hot." He panted heavily and looked at the little woman on top of him. His eyes had already turned red from lust. "Wifey, let go of me." "No, I haven't played enough." Her slender fingers grasped his perky buttocks and slowly tightened. Her movements were very jerky but very seductive. He raised his chin high and was almost unable to control himself. After he exploded, she wiped the liquid on her hands and got off the bed with a naughty smile on her lips. "Hubby, I'm going to take a shower. Gigai can lie here." Little rascal, she clearly knew that a certain part of his body was not appeased and was even more inflamed. She actually left him here just like that. Bailey Han gritted his teeth and the sound of fabric tearing could be heard. Before Xia Dong could react, her body was already in the air. The next moment she was lying on the soft mattress. A certain someone's hideous face that was tortured by lust suddenly appeared above her. "Little rascal, you want to escape after lighting me up?" A certain someone imprisoned her in his arms. His hot breath sprayed on her face and his low and hoarse voice was filled with lust. Over the next few hours, Bailey Han tortured her until she cried and begged for mercy. Reality proved that she would always be the weaker party in front of him. Even with the help of neckties and ropes, she could not succeed in her counterattack. This was what it meant to reap what you sow. The next day, Xia Dong rubbed her aching waist and came to the conclusion that made her cry. On the other side, the children in the kindergarten were extremely excited. They could finally leave this small mountain village and go home. After breakfast, the children dragged their small suitcases and ran happily to the minibus. Little Wingzy and his siblings walked at a leisurely pace at the back of the group. Lil Guai looked back at the village, her beautiful eyes filled with reluctance. Big brother Wingzy, I think this place is pretty good." Xiao Bao touched her hair and said seriously, "If that's the case, then Gigai shouldn't go home with us. You can stay here." Xiao Yi also looked serious. "Yeah, we'll tell Daddy and Mommy that Gigai can't bear to leave this place." "Ah." Xiao Guai's little face immediately fell. She said pitifully, "Are you going to leave me behind?" Xiao Yi nodded. "Yeah, you said you couldn't bear to leave this place." Xiao Guai frowned and almost cried. "I just couldn't bear to leave. I didn't say I was going to stay here. Brother-y, don't leave me behind, okay? I miss Daddy and Mommy so much." Xiao Bao laughed. "Little fool, we're just teasing you. How could we leave you behind?" Xiao Yi touched her head and sighed. "Gigai, why are you so naive? I'm so worried that you'll be sold off one day and still help them count the money." Xiao Guai was stunned. Then she said angrily, "You're so mean. When I get home, I'm going to tell Daddy and Mommy that you bullied me." In the distance, Teacher Ding Lin shouted, "Xiao Yi, Xiao Bao, Xiao Guai, it's only the three of you left. Hurry up and get in the car." "Coming?" Xiao Bao answered and grabbed the suitcases from Xiao Guai. "Let's go. The teacher is rushing us." Xiao Bao dragged the two suitcases forward. Xiao Yi dragged the suitcases with one hand and held Xiao Guai's hand with the other. Xiao Guai suddenly stopped in her tracks and pointed to a big tree on the right. "Brother Yi, look over there. It looks like an old granny." Xiao Yi followed her line of sight. It really was that strange old granny. She leaned on a walking stick and leaned against the big tree. She kept staring in their direction, but no one knew what she was looking at. "Yeah, it's the old granny. Let's go." Xiao Yi turned around and tugged at Xiao Guai's little hand. "Brother Yi, you guys go first. I'll go say goodbye to Granny." Xiao Guai ignored Xiao Yi's attempts to stop her and ran toward the big tree. The old woman looked at Xiao Guai running over from afar with a hint of warmth in her eyes. Xiao Guai ran in front of her and smiled. "Granny, we're leaving. Goodbye." The old woman touched her head and smiled kindly. "Goodbye." The minibus drove far away. Xiao Yi looked back and saw the old woman standing beside the big tree, staring at them from afar. Ad Hongcha 866. Chapter 338. After returning home, the children told Xia Dong and Bailey Han about the old lady. They all thought that the old lady liked children, so she took special care of them and did not take it to heart. The impact of this spring outing on the children was obvious. Xiao Guai, who had always been picky about food, was not only not picky about food, but also ate all the food in her bowl at every meal, not wasting a single bit. Little Wingzy and Little Treasure both had the thought that they were not strong enough, so when Bailey Han announced that he had hired a coach to teach them martial arts, they cheered and jumped for joy. Their spirits were high as they looked forward to the arrival of April. Just as they were craning their necks and gazing into the distance, April stepped into the world with the warm spring breeze. The Taekwondo and Judo coaches also arrived as scheduled. Every morning at 6 o'clock, the three little guys were dragged out of bed by Bailey Han with sleepy eyes and brought to the training room. At first, the three of them were not used to it. They stood weakly in the empty training room and yawned. Slowly, after they got used to it, they did not need to be called. When it was time, they would get out of bed and wait for the coach on the training field. Gigai was waiting for the coach. The day before the Qingming festival, Bailey Yun came back from the United States to visit Xiaobao. In the afternoon, the plane arrived in City A. After he walked out of the airport, he looked at his watch and got into the car that his family chauffeur had sent to pick him up. He did not go home directly, but asked the chauffeur to drive the car to the gate of Imperial Kindergarten. When the car arrived at the kindergarten, school had just finished. Xiaobao and her siblings came out of the school gate and saw Bailey Yun leaning on the Rolls-Royce at a glance. He, who always valued his image, looked travel-worn. However, this did not detract from his handsome appearance and elegant temperament. He lazily crossed his arms, and there was a warm smile on his handsome face. He looked handsome and unrestrained. Many parents who came to pick up their children were attracted by his outstanding figure. Second uncle, Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai shouted excitedly and enthusiastically threw themselves at him. Xiaobao pursed her pink lips. She lowered her head slightly and walked slowly at the back. "Little guys, did you miss second uncle?" Bailey Yun snorted on Xiao Yi's head, then picked up Xiao Guai and kissed her cheek. Finally, he looked at Xiao Bao, who was slowly walking towards him. After leaving City A after the Spring Festival, although Xiao Bao called him Daddy at the airport, he refused to call him every time he called, which made Bailey Yun very depressed. At this moment, the awkward child dawdled for a long time before approaching him. Bailey Yun placed Xiao Guai on the ground. He reached out his arm and pulled Xiao Bao, who was standing a meter away from him, over. He rubbed his hair hard and chuckled. "Son, Daddy is back. Don't you want to give Daddy a warm hug?" Xiao Bao puffed up his cheeks and turned his face awkwardly. "Oh, welcome back. Yo, you're really cold. I've been working overtime these past few days in vain, just to squeeze out a few more days to accompany you." Bai Liyun's tone was lonely and bleak, just like a resentful woman who was despised by others. Xiao Bao could not help but turn to look at him. At such a close distance, he saw that his eyelids were slightly green and his eyes were bloodshot. It seemed like he had not slept well for a long time. Xiao Bao had a very complicated feeling in his heart. When he was not around, he would miss him, but when he really appeared in front of him, he felt helpless and did not know how to face him. In short, Xiao Bao accepted the fact that Bailey Yun was his father, but he was not used to interacting with him. His little eyes flickered, and his lips moved as he said dryly, You don't have to work so hard in the future." Bailey Yun was overjoyed by his seemingly caring words. He smiled and carried him up. "Son, I'll take it that you're concerned about me, huh?" Xiao Bao's pink little ears were slightly red. While the father and son were talking about their feelings, Xiao Yi had already held Xiao Guai's hand, quietly retreated and got into the car. "Son, did you miss me when I wasn't around?" Bailey Yun placed Xiao Bao in the Rolls-Royce and sat beside him. He smiled and said, "I missed you a lot." Xiao Bao said in a muffled voice, "It's okay, I didn't miss you a lot." Bai Liyun cupped his heart and said with melancholy, "Son, you hurt my heart too much." Xiao Bao seemed to be used to having such a thick-skinned father. He did not feel embarrassed at all. Instead, he felt a little happy. Bailey Yun could stay in the country for 3 days this time. He planned to take Xiao Bao out to play during the Tomb Sweeping Day holiday to improve the relationship between father and son. On the day of the Tomb Sweeping Day, Xia Dong and Bailey Han brought Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai to visit their mother's grave. As if to celebrate the festival, it started to drizzle. The rain was very light, so there was no need to hold an umbrella. At most, it would be a little wet when it touched people. Xiao Yi and Xiao Guai each held a bouquet of lilies in their arms as the family of four walked on the tree-lined road. There were many people like them who were visiting the grave. They were in twos and threes and their expressions were solemn or sad. Xia Dong did not expect to meet Su Yunxian's parents here. Su Bolin held Mrs. Su's waist as the two of them walked alone. They looked sad and Mrs. Su's eyes were red. "Uncle, Auntie," Bailey Han greeted them politely. Su Bolin and his wife were stunned for a moment before they nodded. "You're here to visit the grave too?" Bailey Han turned his head to look at Xia Dong. "We're here to visit mother-in-law." The atmosphere was a little awkward. Ever since Su Yunxian's matter was exposed, the two families had completely fallen out and had not interacted for a long time. Su Bolin coughed and said, "Then go quickly. Don't delay." Bailey Han nodded politely. The family of four was about to leave when Su Bolin pursed his lips and suddenly said, "Ahan?" Bailey Han turned around. "Uncle, is there anything else?" Su Bolin's eyes were filled with guilt. He hesitated for a moment before he slowly said, "I haven't had the chance to apologize to you and Xia Dong. Today, I want to apologize to you on behalf of Yun Qian. I don't expect you to forgive her, but I hope you don't hate her." Bailey Han said calmly, "Uncle, let bygones be bygones. Don't mention it again." Hating someone was actually a very difficult thing. Because of hatred, you always remembered the reason for your hatred. You remembered the pain that others had caused you. Every time you recalled it, it was like you were being dismembered. In front of Xia Ling's tombstone were flowers that the children had presented to her. Xia Dong went forward and squatted in front of the tombstone. She stared at the small photo on the tombstone and said gently, "Mom, Xiao Guai's illness has been cured. Ahan and I have given you a little grandson. Are you happy?" "Mom, Ahan is very good to me. We live a very happy life. You can rest assured in heaven." Every time Xia Dong came to visit her mother, she felt bad. She felt that it was unfair for her mother. She felt that it was a pity that her mother did not have a good day. Her nose was sour and her eyes were moist. Bailey Han helped her up from the ground. He stared at Xia Ling's photo with a serious expression and said, "Mom, don't worry. I will take good care of Xiaxia and the children." While they were reminiscing about Xia Ling, they did not know that a thin figure was hiding behind the tombstone behind them. Every word they said fell into her ears. Her thin shoulders trembled slightly as if she was suppressing something. "Honey, let's go." Bailey Han put his arm around Xia Dong's waist and beckoned the two children to follow. The figure could not help but straighten up. She looked past the tombstone and greedily wanted to take a few more glances at them. Unexpectedly, she had squatted for too long and her legs were already numb. In addition, her right leg was not flexible to begin with. As her body leaned forward, she stumbled and bumped into the fruit plate in front of the tombstone. The fruit plate fell over with a clang and the apples inside rolled out. "Hey, I think I heard something." Lil Guai and little Wingzi held hands as they walked at the back. Lil Guai's ears were sharp. Suddenly they stopped in their tracks and looked around. However, they did not discover anything because the figure had quickly retreated behind the tombstone. An apple rolled to her feet with a gurgle. Xiao Guai stared at the big red apple at her feet and shouted, "Mommy, there's an apple." So strange. Where did the apple come from? Maybe someone accidentally dropped it during the ceremony. Xia Dong also looked around. Finally, she found several apples scattered in front of the tombstone on the left. She pointed there and said, "It probably rolled over from there. Then I'll take this apple back." Xiao Guai bent down to pick up the apple and ran to the tombstone on the left. The person hiding in the back didn't have time to dodge and was hit by her. Xiao Guai looked at the figure in surprise and smiled sweetly. "Grandma, you're here too." The old woman had no choice but to stand up. With her back facing Xia Dong, she lowered her voice and said, "Yes, Xiao Guai, hurry over. Your daddy and mommy are still waiting for you." Xia Dong and Bailey Han were surprised to see the old woman's back. Xia Dong asked Xiao Yi, "Xiao Yi, does Xiao Guai know that old woman?" Xiao Yi had already recognized the old woman's back and nodded. "She's the old woman we met during the spring outing in the mountain village." "I see. Then we should go over and say hello to her and thank her for taking care of you. Hubby, what do you think?" Bailey Han had no objections. "Grandma." Xiao Yi ran in front and greeted the old woman affectionately. "Xiao Yi, you're here too." The old woman pretended to have just seen her. "Hello, Auntie." It was Xia Dong who spoke. Hearing Xia Dong's familiar voice, the old woman suddenly froze. She lowered her head and did not dare to look back at her. Seeing that the old woman did not respond, Xiaodong walked in front of her and said politely, "Auntie, I heard from the children that you took care of them during their spring outing. I thank you on behalf of the children." The old woman still lowered her head. Her right hand gripped the walking stick tightly as she said in a hoarse voice, "It's okay. I like the 3 children very much." Bailey Han sized up the old woman. She was neatly dressed and had white hair. Her right leg was not agile and she was holding a walking stick in her hand. Perhaps it was because of the scar on her face she kept her head down and was unwilling to look up at them. He did not take it to heart and smiled. "Auntie, it's not easy to get a taxi on this road. If you don't mind, I can give you a ride." The old woman shook her head. "It's okay. There's no need to trouble you. I can go back by myself." Xiao Guai blinked his big eyes and said softly, "Grandma, there's still a long way to go from here. Why don't you take our car?" Xiaodong said, "Yes, Auntie. It's not safe for you to take a car alone. Let us take you to the bus station." The old woman lowered her head and was silent for a moment. Finally she said in a hoarse voice, "Okay then. Sorry to trouble you." Xiaodong smiled. "It's no trouble. Shall we help Grandma? We're leaving." Bailey Han realized that the 2 children were really close to the old woman, especially Xiao Guai. She walked on the left side of the old woman with a bright smile on her little face. She would say something that he did not understand from time to time. It sounded like a story that an old person would tell a child. He guessed that the old woman might have told it to her in the past. The old woman also liked Xiao Guai very much. She would stroke her little head from time to time and laugh softly. The old woman and the young girl would laugh together like a pair of grandmother and granddaughter. The group of people walked on the shaded road and headed out of the cemetery. A man walked towards them. His hair was white and the corners of his eyes were full of wrinkles. He was holding a bouquet of chrysanthemums in his hands. It was Xia Jinxing. Xia Dong stopped in her tracks. Bailey Han's hand on her waist tightened. It was obvious that he was trying to comfort her. Xia Jinxing also stopped in his tracks. He looked a little uncomfortable. His right hand clutched his chrysanthemum tightly. "Xia Han, you're here too." Bailey Han's lips moved. Just as he was about to speak, Xiao Guai's exclamation came from behind. "Grandma, what's wrong?" Then came Xiao Yi's anxious voice. "Grandma's asthma is acting up. Xiao Guai, can you check if Grandma's spray is in that pocket?" Bailey Han and Xia Dong quickly turned around to help. Bailey Han took the spray from Xiao Guai and sprayed it in front of the old woman's nose. Her rapid breathing gradually weakened and her twitching body gradually stabilized. Even so, she still lowered her head and was unwilling to raise it. Xia Dong held her arm and said worriedly, "Auntie, why don't you sit down and rest for a while?" She calmed her breathing and said slowly, "I'm fine. I'm fine now." Xia Jinxing looked at them in a daze. He clearly didn't understand what was going on with this team. After Bailey Han confirmed that the old madam had recovered, he patted Xiao Yi's little head and said, "Xiao Yi, Xiao Guai, why aren't you greeting him? Hurry up and greet Grandpa." The 2 children's first reaction was to look at Xia Dong's expression. They knew that their mommy didn't like their grandpa. Xia Dong's expression was indifferent and didn't show any displeasure. Thus the 2 children were relieved. They smiled and said, "Hello, Grandpa." Xia Jinxing was so excited that he almost cried. He said repeatedly, "Hello, hello." Awesome novel Hongxia 866. Chapter 339. Let's go. It's getting late. Xia Dong patted the 2 children's shoulders, still ignoring Xia Jinxing. After all, their relationship had been rigid for so many years. Even if she was willing to let go of her hatred for him, she was still not ready to face him. Xia Jinxing's expression stiffened. Bailey Han smiled and said lightly, "Father-in-law will go first." Xia Jinxing was suddenly shocked, and his eyes quickly filled with joy. He nodded again and again, "Okay, you go first. I'll accompany your mother-in-law." Xia Dong's expression changed and her lips tightened. She wanted to say something but in the end she held it back. The old woman's fingers holding the crutch suddenly trembled, and her body was unstable. Xia Dong quickly supported her. "Auntie, are you okay?" "I'm fine." Her voice was a little trembling. Xia Dong thought that she had not recovered from her illness, so she did not care about being angry with Xia Jinxing and helped her out of the cemetery. Xia Jinxing looked at their departing figures. In the end, his gaze landed on the old woman and his brows furrowed slightly. That thin and frail figure was hunched over, as if she was carrying 1,000 kilograms of weight on her back. Her entire body exuded a sorrowful and lonely aura, causing him to feel sorrow in his heart. The old woman seemed to be very afraid of others seeing her face. Along the way she kept her head down, shrank herself in the corner, and did not say a word. Bailey Han sent her to the station, where she could take the minibus back to the town. After the couple sent her to the bus, the minibus had not yet started. Xia Dong saw many fruit vendors around the station. She whispered a few words to Bailey Han, and then quickly walked to the fruit stall to buy some fruits. Xia Dong got on the minibus intending to give the fruits to the old woman. She looked around and saw an old face in the second last row. The left side of the face was uneven with terrible scars, and the right side was full of wrinkles which set off her gray hair. Her turbid eyes were filled with surprise. She lowered her head in a panic, avoiding Xia Dong's gaze. The driver was already urging them. Xia Dong did not have time to think anymore. She quickly walked to the old woman, stuffed the fruit bag into her hand and said, "Auntie, take these fruits and eat them on the road. Be careful on the road." The old woman's bark-like hands grasped the fruit bag tightly. She nodded heavily and her voice was a little choked with sobs. "Okay, goodbye. Miss, I'm going to drive. Please get off quickly." The driver urged again. Xia Dong only had time to say, "Goodbye," before he hurried out of the car. On the way home, Xia Dong felt that something was wrong. Bailey Han turned his head and saw her frowning and deep in thought. He chuckled and asked, "Honey, what are you thinking about? I keep feeling that something is not right. What's wrong?" Xia Dong suddenly turned to look at him and said seriously, "Honey, that auntie, she lived 50 or 60 kilometers away from a city. Why did she come here to visit the grave?" Bailey Han raised his eyebrows. "Maybe the one in the grave is her friend." "Well, let's assume that what you said is right. I found that the apple plate in front of the grave was overturned, and the apples rolled on the ground. If that's the grave of the auntie's friend, why did she let those apples roll on the ground and not pick them up? Maybe it happened so suddenly that she forgot. Honey, aren't you thinking too much?" Bailey Han thought that the old woman was a very ordinary old woman, and there was nothing special about her. "Maybe." Xia Dong frowned. "The reason why I think she's strange is that when I was delivering the fruits to the car, I accidentally saw her face. Although it was full of wrinkles and scars, and it was almost impossible to see her original face, I felt that there was something familiar between her eyebrows." Hearing her words, Bailey Han also had some ideas. She kept her head down all the way as if she didn't want us to see her face. Xia Dong suddenly had an idea. "Honey, do you think the old auntie is someone I used to know?" Bailey Han smiled. "Honey, don't worry too much. If fate wills it, we'll meet her again. You can ask her then." "Yes, you're right." In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Xia Dong had almost forgotten about this matter, but something suddenly happened that made her notice the strangeness of the old woman again. On this day she picked up Xiao Yi and her siblings from school and parked the car not far from the school gate. Every time she waited for the children at this place, they already knew the exact location, so she wasn't in a hurry to get out of the car. She sat in the car and waited for the children. She inadvertently looked up and saw an old figure standing across the street. She took a closer look and saw that it was the old woman. Just as she was surprised, the school gate opened, and a group of children poured out one after another. The old woman hurriedly hid her body behind a pillar and poked her head out slightly. When she saw Xiao Yi and her siblings appear at the school gate, the corners of her lips curled up, and her eyes filled with joy. The children chattered as they walked towards Xia Dong's BMW. Xia Dong opened the car door for them and welcomed them into the car. She gave them a few instructions, then got out of the car and ran across the road. The old woman's gaze followed the children, so when she saw Xia Dong get out of the car, she quickly shrank back and leaned her back against the pillar. She wanted to wait for them to leave before coming out. She didn't expect Xia Dong's voice to suddenly sound in her ears. "Auntie?" The old woman turned her head stiffly and arched her back to hide her face. "Auntie, why are you here?" Xia Dong's heart was full of questions. The old woman lowered her head even more and whispered, "I was passing by and just wanted to take a look. Auntie, may I ask if we know each other before?" The old woman's tone was a little flustered. "No, we don't know each other. But I think you look a little familiar." The old woman said without hesitation, "You must be mistaken." Xia Dong hesitated for a moment, then suddenly reached out to hold the old woman's shoulders, trying to make her look up to her. However, the old woman was very stubborn and refused to look up. "Auntie, I want to see your face." "No, my face is too scary." "It's better not to scare you." "Madam, I should go. Please let go of me." Xia Dong had no choice but to let go of her. "Auntie, where are you going?" "I'll send you." "No need." The old woman didn't want to stay a moment longer. She leaned on her walking stick and walked quickly to the intersection. but her legs were inconvenient and she almost tripped several times. Her back view looked flustered and disheveled. Xia Dong felt an inexplicable sadness in his heart. She bit her lip and ran to the old woman's side. Without any explanation, she held her arm. "Auntie, let me send you. My car is parked over there." "No, it's really not necessary." The old woman struggled a few times, but Xia Dong held her arm tightly and almost dragged her to the BMW. She had no choice but to give up struggling. At an angle that Xia Dong couldn't see, the old woman's eyes were filled with tears. Xia Dong helped the old woman into the car. The three children were a little surprised. Xiao Guai cried out in surprise, "Grandma, are you here to visit us again?" Again. This word was profound and thought-provoking. The old woman rubbed her hands awkwardly and explained to Xia Dong, "A few days ago, I sent strawberries to the city and came to visit the three children." "I see. Thank you for your concern, Auntie." Xia Dong smiled and nodded. It seemed that she had specially come to visit the children today and wasn't just looking around, as she had said earlier. Why did the old woman like the three children so much? Xia Dong was getting more and more curious. Through the rearview mirror, Xia Dong saw the old woman affectionately stroking Xiao Guai's hair and telling a story to the children in a low voice. She coughed and asked, "Auntie, where are you going? Or should I send you directly to the station?" The old woman paused and said, "Send me to the station. Sorry to trouble you." Xia Dong sent her to the bus and watched the bus leave the station. Then she took the children home. On the way she asked, "Why didn't you tell me that Grandma came to visit you a few days ago?" The three children looked at each other. Finally Xiao Bao raised his arm and answered, "Reporting to Mom, Grandma told us not to tell the adults. She also said that she didn't mean any harm. She was worried that you would be unhappy if you found out, so she didn't allow her to visit us." Xia Dong was speechless. She stared at the three innocent and cute little faces in the mirror. "Do you think your daddy and I are unreasonable people?" The three of them shook their heads in unison and said sweetly, "No." "Then why did you hide it from me?" Xiao Guai pouted pitifully. "Grandma asked us for a long time, so we agreed." Xiao Yi asked seriously, "Mommy, are you angry now?" Xia Dong felt defeated. "Forget it, I'm not angry." Xia Dong had an idea. She wanted to investigate the old woman's identity. Although she could tell that the old woman didn't mean any harm, she felt that the old woman was hiding something from her. That night, she went to Xiao Bao's place to ask about the old woman's address. Xiao Bao drew a simple map for her and said, "Mom, are you really going to Grandma's house?" "Yes, I feel that Grandma is hiding something from us. I want to find out." "Okay then. Mom, if you're lost, you can ask anyone about Fu Qinghai's house. You'll find it." Fu Qinghai. Yes, that's Grandma's husband's name. Oh, by the way, I haven't asked. What's Grandma's name? Xiao Bao scratched his head in frustration. "I don't know either." As a junior, who would ask an elder's name in front of them? That would be rude. Xia Dong patted his shoulder in amusement. "It's okay. When I get there, I'll ask anyone and I'll find out." Attention Hongcha 866. Chapter 340. Xia Dong reported her plan to Bailey Han. Before Bailey Han approved it, he made a request. He wanted to send her bodyguard, Leng Shui, to go with her. "Hubby, I'm not going into a tiger's den. Isn't it a little too much to bring a bodyguard?" Xia Dong was speechless. Bailey Han pretended to be serious. "It's not an exaggeration at all. As long as you're more than 10 kilometers away from me, you have to bring a bodyguard." Xia Dong was completely in awe of him and bared her teeth like a wild kitten. "President Bailey, it's safer if you just put a metal chain around my neck." He stroked his chin in a serious manner. "Wifey, your suggestion is worth considering." She pounced on him and rubbed his cheek. "You actually dare to consider it? I'll prepare handcuffs and handcuff you first." He caught her mischievous little paw and held it tightly in his palm. His sexy lips curved into a mischievous smile. "Handcuffs, candles, a whip. Wifey, I didn't expect you to have such a strong taste. But since you like it, I'll play with you. Let's try it tonight, okay?" She would never be his match in terms of shamelessness. He suddenly turned over and pinned her under his body. His deep eyes were filled with tenderness as he supported himself with his arms beside her body. His scorching gaze almost burned her to ashes. Her back was pressed tightly against the desk and her fingers were gripping the edge of the desk uneasily. "Hubby, this is the office," she mumbled. Her seductive lips opened and closed and his eyes were about to burst into flames. However, he still had a faint smile on his face. "So." His hand had already reached under her shirt and was quietly invading her territory. She couldn't help but tremble. Her fingers clasped his arm tightly and she muttered, "You're a disgrace to the gentleman." A low and magnetic laughter came from the depths of his chest. He suddenly carried her up and walked quickly to the lounge. "I won't any more." An hour later she was blushing and hiding under the blanket. She was curled up like a caterpillar and refused to come out. She had only come to the company to discuss some matters with him during his lunch break, but she was abducted to the bed by him. Her willpower was too weak. Bailey Han stood by the bed, neatly dressed. There was a relaxed smile on his handsome face, and his eyebrows were raised. That was the unique high-spirited feeling that came after a satiated meal. He bent down and hugged the bulging blanket in his arms. He chuckled softly. "Tired?" She arched her body like a little bug and accurately found the position of his chest. She leaned her little head against it and muttered in a muffled voice, "How am I going to get out later?" When she came to find him, she was wearing one set of clothes. The two of them stayed in the office for more than an hour, and when she left, she changed into another set of clothes. Even a fool could guess what they did. "Come out, don't be bored." Bailey Han pulled the blanket down from her head. Her cheeks were flushed and she still looked charming. Her eyes were watery and lively. He rubbed her soft hair affectionately. "Just walk out like this. No one will dare to laugh at you." Tears welled up in her eyes. "They just won't laugh in front of me." She believed that such a good source of gossip would be unforgivable if she didn't spread it everywhere. "Don't mind what others think. As long as we live comfortably, it's fine." Bailey Han lowered his head and kissed her forehead. He comforted her gently. "If you don't want to go out alone, I'll accompany you downstairs." She quickly shook her head. "That will only make things worse. I'll face it alone." She pushed his chest. "Don't you still have a meeting? Hurry up and go." He looked up at her. His eyes were filled with tenderness. The corners of his lips curled up. "Are you sure you'll be fine by yourself?" Hearing him say that, she felt a little embarrassed. "It's fine. I was just casually complaining. Hurry up and go to your work. Don't worry about me." He caressed her face gently. "Silly girl, you don't have to be so righteous in front of me. You don't have to pretend to be relaxed. Honey, sometimes you're so sensible that it makes my heart ache." Actually, he had wanted to say this to her for a long time. He liked to see her throw a tantrum in front of him. He didn't like it when she was willing to be wronged for his sake. Xiaodong leaned her head on his chest and wrapped her arms around his waist. She felt as if a hot spring had flowed through her heart. It was warm and comfortable. She knew a long time ago that she hadn't married the wrong person. She was glad that he had forcefully tied her to his side. She was also glad that she had made the decision to open her heart to him. Otherwise, she would have missed the love of her life. In the end, Bailey Han still wrapped an arm around her waist and sent her downstairs under the watchful gazes of the employees who were pretending to be busy but were actually gossiping. Xiaoshui Village. The village was like its name. Clear water surrounded the valley and spring covered the mountains. It was a beautiful sight. Xiaodong stepped on the green grass and walked between the fields. She held a simple map drawn by Xiao Bao in her hand as she looked for Fu Qinghai's house. Leng Shui followed behind her at a distance. After all, it was the first time that Xiaodong had come to this unfamiliar place. Eventually she got lost. By the field, a 7 or 8-year-old child was leading an old cow. The old cow was eating grass leisurely with its head buried in the ground. The child looked at them curiously. Xiaodong smiled in a friendly manner. "Little kid, do you know where Fu Qinghai lives?" The child nodded shyly and pointed at the hill. "Go over this hill and turn right. You'll see a brick house. That's Grandpa Fu's house." "Little kid, do you know the name of Grandpa Fu's wife?" The child shook his head. "I don't know, but we all call her Grandma Xia." Her surname was Xia? Was it a coincidence? Xiaodong had an idea. She took out a handful of candies from her pocket and stuffed them into his hand. "Thank you, little kid." The child smiled embarrassedly. "You're welcome, Auntie. Thank you for the candies." Xiaodong smiled and stroked his head. She walked in the direction he pointed. After climbing over the hillside, what came into view was a lush green vegetable field. A few peasant women were picking vegetables in the field, chatting and laughing about family matters. Xiaodong did not forget the purpose of her visit. She walked to the field and smiled at them. "Big sister, sorry to disturb you. May I ask if Fu Qinghai lives here?" The women looked up at her at the same time. One of them pointed at a house in the distance and smiled honestly. "Yes, it's over there." "Okay, thank you." Xiaodong followed her gaze and looked at the house. She smiled and said, "Big sister, may I ask what the name of Fu Qinghai's wife is?" The women exchanged glances with each other and began to discuss among themselves. Finally someone said, "We only know that her surname is Xia and we've always called her Big Sister Xia. We really don't know her full name." Xia Dong found it unbelievable. How could someone live here alone for so many years and not know her full name? Another woman added, "Fu Qinghai's family didn't live here originally. They moved here more than 10 years ago. Actually, we don't know much about their family." Xia Dong nodded. "Big sister, do you know if they have any relatives?" The big sister looked at her in confusion. "Who are you? Why do you keep asking about their family?" Xia Dong smiled. "It's like this. Our children came here for a spring outing more than a month ago. Auntie Xia took special care of the children, so I came here to thank her." The big sister was relieved. She smiled and said, "I see. The Fu family doesn't seem to have any relatives. Other than the neighbors, they rarely interact with others." Someone said, "They have a son, but he's a good-for-nothing." "Hey Auntie Wang, don't tell anyone about those things. I'm just saying it casually." Xia Dong didn't get much information from them. It seemed that Fu Qinghai's family was quite mysterious. In front of her was a one-story red brick courtyard. The courtyard door was closed. Xia Dong raised her hand and knocked on the door. "Is anyone home?" She called a few times but no one answered. She only heard the sound of dogs barking in the courtyard. It was morning now, so they might be working in the fields. Xia Dong thought of the strawberry garden that Xiaobao mentioned. She asked a few people on the way and successfully found the Fu family's strawberry garden. Outside the greenhouse, an old couple was busy packing strawberries. The old woman sat on a low chair and packed the strawberries while Fu Qinghai bent over to carry them. Xia Dong went forward. "Uncle, Auntie, sorry to disturb you." The old woman acted as if she didn't hear her and continued with what she was doing. Fu Qinghai put down the box in his hands and turned around. He was slightly startled when he saw a young and beautiful woman standing in front of him. Then he seemed to have thought of something and his face turned pale. Xia Dong was also looking at Fu Qinghai. Although his face was full of wrinkles, she could vaguely see that he looked like a young man. Just like the old woman, he gave her a very familiar feeling. Where had she seen him before? Fu Qinghai forced himself to return to normal and coughed. "Who are you looking for?" Xia Dong put the 2 gift boxes on the ground and said with a smile, "Uncle, I'm Xiao Yi and her sibling's mother. You and Auntie took care of the children last month, so I'm here to thank you." Fu Qinghai rubbed his hands uncomfortably. He glanced at the old woman and said, "You're too polite. My wife doesn't like strangers, so don't mind her. Let's go home and have a cup of tea. Stay for lunch." Xia Dong came to find out more about the situation, so she didn't refuse. She smiled and said, "Uncle, let's finish this first. I'll help you." "No need, no need. I'm not in a hurry anyway. Wife, hurry up and accompany the guests home. I'm going to town to buy some groceries." "Uncle, a simple meal is fine." Xia Dong hurriedly stopped Fu Qinghai. "If you're so polite, I'll be too embarrassed to stay and trouble you." Fu Qinghai smiled honestly. "Daughter, you don't know we don't have any relatives. It's rare to have guests, so we're happy. It's only 100 meters from town, so it's very convenient. You and my wife go home first. I'll be back soon. Daughter, come with us." The last sentence he said was referring to Leng Shui, who was not far from Xia Dong. Attention Hongcha 866. Chapter 341. Xia Dong hurriedly said, "This is my chauffeur, uncle. Sorry for the trouble." "Don't mention it. Hurry, let's go home." Although Fu Qinghai was old, his legs were very agile. He walked briskly towards the town. The old woman put down her work and stood up. She slowly looked up at Xia Dong. Her gaze was a little complicated, and there was an inexplicable sadness in it. She sighed softly. "Let's go home." The courtyard was not big, but it was very clean. There was an osmanthus tree in the courtyard. The light yellow petals dotted the green leaves like stars, and the air was filled with a fragrant scent. The tree was as thick as a bowl and looked like it had been planted for at least 10 years. Xia Dong could not help but be in a daze. She remembered that there was such a thick tree in the courtyard where she lived when she was young. Every time the osmanthus flowers bloomed, her mother would make osmanthus wine balls for her. She would sit under the osmanthus tree and feed her spoonful by spoonful. Unknowingly, the corners of her eyes were a little wet. The osmanthus flowers were still there, but the warm embrace that hugged her was no longer there. The old woman leaned against the door and looked at Xia Dong standing in front of the osmanthus tree in a daze. A flash of pain quickly flashed across her cloudy eyes. She quickly lowered her head and walked into the room. A few minutes later, the old woman walked out with a small coffee table. Xia Dong saw this and quickly went forward to help her. The old woman pointed at the osmanthus tree. Put it under the tree. The scenery outside is good. Okay. Xiaodong placed the coffee table under the osmanthus tree and helped to bring a small chair over. The old woman went into the kitchen and made a pot of osmanthus tea. The yellow tea slowly poured into a transparent glass, and the aroma filled the air. The three of them sat around the coffee table. Silence. Xiaodong looked up at the osmanthus tree and smiled. Andy, you like osmanthus trees too? The old woman's tone was indifferent. Yes, my child likes osmanthus. When she was young, every time the osmanthus flowers bloomed, she liked to ask me to make osmanthus wine balls for her. Xiaodong's smile widened, and her eyes were covered with a layer of mist. When I was young, I also liked to pester my mother to make osmanthus wine balls. The old woman smiled and said gently, Your mother must be very happy to have such an outstanding daughter like you. Xiaodong's vision was blurred by tears. She couldn't even see the figure in front of her clearly. She choked slightly and said, My mother has passed away. She didn't see me grow up, let alone enjoy a day of happiness. The old woman lowered her eyes and picked up the teacup to hide the sadness in her eyes, but she couldn't hide her slightly trembling fingers. Wife, I'm back. An old voice broke the silence in the courtyard. Fu Qinghai pushed open the courtyard door and entered. He was carrying bags of vegetables with a simple smile on his face. Xiaodong raised her head and felt that this scene was somewhat familiar. She couldn't help but frown and ponder. Fu Qinghai quickened his pace and walked towards them. He said cheerfully, Sit down, I'll go cook. The old woman stood up. I'll go. You stay here and chat with the guests for a while. Fu Qinghai touched his head honestly and the wrinkles on his face smoothed out. He smiled and said, That's true. My cooking isn't as good as yours. You can go in first. Call me if you need my help. A light suddenly flashed through Xiaodong's mind. She suddenly widened her eyes and stared at Fu Qinghai. Her voice trembled. Uncle Fu, is that you? Uncle Fu? Fu Qinghai and the old woman froze at the same time. Xiaodong suddenly stood up and grabbed Fu Qinghai's hands. Uncle Fu, I'm Xiaxia. Xiaodong, do you still remember me? Fu Qinghai's face suddenly turned pale. He didn't know what to do and pushed Xiaodong's hands away. I don't know what you're talking about, Xiaodong said excitedly. Uncle Fu, I remember you. You must be Uncle Fu. We used to live in the same courtyard. You used to help my mother set up the stall. My mother's name is Xia Ling. Do you remember? Fu Qinghai stood there dumbfounded. His lips moved but he didn't say a word for a long time. Uncle Fu, what's wrong? Xiaodong was certain that he was Fu Dehai from 20 years ago. Although he looked old now, there was still a shadow of the past in his eyes and his actions were exactly the same as in the past. Fu Qinghai turned his head stiffly and glanced at the old woman who was also stunned. He sighed deeply in his heart and forced a smile on his face. He pretended to be surprised and said, Xia, so it's you. A girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. I didn't recognize you. Xiaodong laughed. Uncle Fu, I didn't expect you to change your name. Long time no see. How have you been? Good, I've been good. Fu Qinghai hurriedly answered and then gave the old woman a look. Wife, hurry up and get busy in the kitchen. It's getting late. Xiaodong quickly said, Auntie, let me help you. Fu Qinghai stopped her. No, just let your auntie do it. You are a guest today, sit down and chat with me. The old woman picked up the bag of vegetables and walked silently to the kitchen. Xiaodong poured a cup of tea for Fu Qinghai and said, Uncle Fu, Auntie looks very familiar. Did she used to live in our alley? Fu Qinghai's forehead was covered in cold sweat. He smiled uncomfortably. No, I met her after I moved away. Xiaodong asked, By the way, I haven't asked you why you moved away from the courtyard back then. Weren't you living well there? Fu Qinghai looked a bit embarrassed and stammered, Back then, I was very nice to you and your mother. A lot of people gossiped, so I moved away. Back then, Xia Ling was abandoned by Xia Zhenxing. She took her daughter with her and painstakingly set up a food stall. Fu Qinghai pitied the mother and daughter and came to help almost every day. In the end, Xia Ling rented a shop and opened a small restaurant. He simply closed the shop and went to the restaurant to help her. At that time, they worked under the same roof and lived in the same courtyard. It did attract a lot of criticism. Even the young Xiaodong thought that he would become her stepfather. But at that time he suddenly moved away from the courtyard. Not long after, Xia Ling's restaurant was smashed. Not long after, she set a fire and burned herself to death in her room. From then on, Xiaodong had never seen Fu Qinghai again. She did not expect to see him today. She had mixed feelings. She was happy and sad because when she saw Uncle Fu, She could not help but think of her mother. Fu Qinghai coughed and interrupted Xiaodong's memories. Xia, how have you been all these years? Xiaodong smiled. Pretty good. I'm a mother of 4 now. You've already met Xiao Yi and her siblings. I also have a daughter who's only a few months old. Fu Qinghai nodded with relief and asked, Does your husband treat you well? Xiaodong's smile widened. Pretty good. Fu Qinghai said, Good. He was very emotional. Time flies. Back then you were only this tall. He gestured in the air. Now you have children. Sai, we're getting old. Xiaodong was also emotional and full of questions. Uncle Fu, why did you move here? Fu Qinghai was stunned and said slowly, Back then your mother passed away. I didn't have a job in the city, so I moved to the countryside to farm and raise chickens. It's not bad to live a peaceful life like this. The two of them chatted for more than half an hour before the old woman called Fu Qinghai's name from the kitchen. Fu Qinghai smiled. Your aunt is done cooking. You can cook first. I'll help set the table. During dinner, Fu Qinghai enthusiastically asked her and Leng Shui to eat more. He even scooped a bowl of hot chicken soup for them. The chicken soup was delicious. After swallowing it, there was a sweet taste left in the mouth. If one did not pay attention, they would not notice it at all. Xiaodong's expression changed. When she was a child, her mother always liked to add some wolfberries and dates to make chicken soup. The taste was exactly the same as this chicken soup. Even though she had not drunk it for many years, she still remembered this familiar taste. Her fingers trembled and the spoon in her hand fell into the bowl. Her heart almost stopped beating. She stared at the old woman's face without blinking. Although she had aged a lot and there were still scars on her face, her eyebrows were somewhat similar to the young Xiaoling. She widened her eyes in disbelief and opened her mouth slightly. She wanted to say something, but her throat seemed to be blocked by cotton and she could not say anything. Xia, what's wrong? Fu Qinghai asked worriedly when he saw her pale face and strange expression. The old woman's eyes were also filled with worry. Xiaodong's eyelashes fluttered, and tears quickly gathered in her eyes. A teardrop rolled down from her eye and fell into the bowl of chicken soup. She opened her mouth and cried out in a heart-wrenching voice, Mom! The old woman's body suddenly froze and the chopsticks in her hand fell to the ground. Xiaodong threw herself at her and hugged her tightly. She burst into tears. Mom, you're still alive, aren't you? The old woman let her hug her and slowly closed her eyes. Her voice was hoarse. I'm not your mom. You've got the wrong person. No, I didn't recognize the wrong person. You're my mother. Only my mother knows that I like osmanthus wine and meatballs. Only my mother puts wolfberries and jujubes in her chicken soup. Mom, don't hide it from me anymore. I'm your daughter. How could you hide it from me? Xiaodong cried so hard that it was as if she wanted to cry out all the grievances she had suffered over the years. 2 streaks of tears flowed from the old woman's tightly shut eyes. She shook her head and denied it. I'm not. Your mom is already dead. Xiaodong held her shoulders and stared at her with teary eyes. She screamed at the top of her lungs, We couldn't find your body in the fire that year. Don't lie to me anymore. What? Why won't you admit it? Mom, do you know how sad I was? Why did you abandon me? Beauty novel Songshu 566.